Number 10. Rose McGowan. So let's talk about the show Charmed for a second, a solid series that was on air for basically 10 years. The series followed three sisters that discover they are descendants of a long line of good female witches and are destined to fight against the forces of evil. Yes, it was a very fun show, however, just because you play sisters on set does not mean that you're always going to be close in real life. Rose McGowan and Alyssa Milano had a very public altercation that resulted in a little incident on set being shared with the world. Rose claimed that Alyssa threw a fit in front of the crew, yelling, "They don't pay me enough to do this stuff," only she didn't say stuff. She called Alyssa's behavior appalling, claiming she cried every time that the show got renewed for another season because it just meant more time on a toxic set. Alyssa never shared her comments on the situation, confirming what she was being accused of. Number 9. Richard Gere. Richard Gere is one of those actors that doesn't really act. Sometimes people just get hired for films because they have a face for it or the style. For Richard, he did not have enough class and moxie to keep a handle on his role in the film Lords of the Flatbush. He was casted to star alongside Rocky himself, Sylvester Stallone, and according to Sly, the two didn't get along at all. Their beef was strong and long-lasting throughout the entire production until it finally came to a head one day when Richard was a bit too into one scene and he actually grabbed Sylvester pretty aggressively by the collar. When Sly told him to lay off, he laid in instead. The scene was being filmed on Coney Island, and when the actors took a minute to take a break, they tried to break each other. Sly was eating a hot dog alone in his car, which sounds pretty peaceful, and suddenly Richard stormed in, joined him with half of a chicken dripping in mustard, and despite his warnings about the mustard, seriously, it dripped all over his pants. In true Rocky fashion, he elbowed Richard in the face, threw him out of his car, and the altercation resulted in Richard being fired from the project. Oh no, they had to decide between Richard Gere and Rocky. I wonder how quick that decision was. Number 8. Selma Blair. It's funny that this entry involves Charlie Sheen getting a woman fired when he himself has been fired from so many projects because of, well, several reasons. After being fired from 2.5 Men, Sheen returned to the acting world, headlining his own show called Anger Management. It premiered in 2012 with cast featuring Hellboy alumni Selma Blair playing his colleague and friend with benefits on the show. However, Sheen's terrible behavior continued to haunt him from his 2.5 Men days. Blair was very vocal on her problems with Charlie, especially his messy work ethic. Charlie heard and he was having none of that, so he threatened to quit the show if Blair was going to remain a part of the cast. Sheen got his way and Blair was let go after starring in 54 episodes. The show didn't last long though. Who would have guessed that a messy actor being the lead was a bad idea? It got cancelled in 2014. Next up, 7. Shannen Doherty. Unfortunately for Shannen Doherty, she gained quite the reputation in Hollywood for being fired due to issues with her co-stars. She may or may not be making another appearance on this list. Who knows? Guess you'll have to stick around to find out. For the first entry, we're going to look back to the very popular series teen drama 90210, a series following the lives of the Walsh family as they moved from Minneapolis to Beverly Hills. Doherty played the character Brenda Walsh, with her character eventually befriending several students at Beverly Hills High, including Donna Martin, played by Tori Spelling. The series was a hit after its initial season, however, with increased popularity came massive egos. Doherty and Spelling started clashing on set constantly, adding additional drama to the production team that really just didn't need to be there. Considering Tori's father, Aaron Spelling, was the producer on the show, it's pretty simple to piece together what happened. Doherty claimed that she was officially let go for having a haircut that messed up the continuity of the show, but a wig could have fixed that, so better believe Tori Spelling told her papa to boot her from the series. Number 6. Edward Norton. As we all know, Edward Norton didn't last long as the Incredible Hulk in the MCU, only being in one movie in 2008. By the way, I've read some of the comments, and no, Edward Norton was not the first person to play the Hulk on screen. The honor goes to Lou Ferrigno and Bill Bixby from the original series, and don't you dare get me started on Eric Bana, looking like he's farting every time he turns into the Hulk. The 2008 film was a success, but not a massive box office goat. The studio were at odds and they wanted to keep using the Hulk and incorporate him into the Avengers, but Edward Norton was becoming increasingly difficult to work with. When he was contacted to keep playing the character, he demanded more money from the studio. However, he was already on thin ice following his time filming The Incredible Hulk. While not some wild on-set meltdown, Norton did make some pretty odd choices. For instance, as part of his contract, he was allowed to rewrite the script as much as he wanted, but it still needed to be approved. So he wrote new scripts over and over again until we got the 2008 Incredible Hulk movie with some of Ed's ideas baked into the final script. Kevin Feige claims that the choice to part ways with Ed was not based on money, but instead on Marvel just wishing to hire an actor that embodies the creative and collaboration side of their talented members. Essentially, he was like, Mark Ruffalo's nicer than you and he doesn't write his scripts, so bye-bye. This ended up being a great decision on both parts though, because Mark Ruffalo is fantastic as Bruce Banner and the Hulk, and Edward went went on to make several high-quality films, including a few collaborations with Wes Anderson. Moonrise Kingdom would not have been the same without Edward Norton as Scoutmaster Ward. Number 5. Anne Hathaway. So fun fact that I was unaware of until today, Anne Hathaway was almost a secondary lead in one of the most universally loved Seth Rogen movies of all time. Knocked Up from 2007 follows Seth Rogen and Katherine Heigl as they prepare for the arrival of an unplanned baby after a one-night stand. The cast was packed with stellar comedians like Paul Rudd, Jonah Hill, Leslie Mann, so many more, and the cast almost featured an up-and-coming actor at the time, Anne Hathaway. Anne is famous these days for roles in movies like Princess Diary, Interstellar, and Ocean's 8. These days, she's considered to be at the top of the A-list. In 2013, she even took home her first Oscar for Best Supporting Actress. Now, before this though, she actually agreed to be in Knocked Up because she thought the script was great and that Seth Rogen, is Seth Rogen. You work with him every chance you can. However, she eventually decided not to participate in the film after one issue with the script became cause for concern. The scene in question was one of the final moments in the film, which for those of you who have seen the movie know is pretty graphic. The birthing scene in Knocked Up ended up being a combination of Katherine acting and some close-up clips of her cookie. Anne read that part and decided that her first role in a major comedy movie should maybe be something else. Although it was confirmed that it was not going to be her bits and bobs on display, she has a no birthday suit clause. It worked out for everyone though, because Katherine did a great job despite hating the set apparently, and Anne Hathaway is one of the biggest movie stars to date, so good for her. Number 4. Dennis Hopper. Dennis Hopper is one of the groundbreaking actors and directors from the 1960s and 70s New Hollywood, eventually finding his niche in the early 90s, playing villains in movies like Speed, Waterworld, and the live-action Mario Brothers movie, where he plays Bowser. Yes, that exists. No, it's not good. So it came as no surprise when he was casted to play Kristoff, the all-powerful TV producer controlling Truman Burbank's life in the movie The Truman Show. The cast was incredible and included Hollywood heavyweight Jim Carrey as the titular Truman. Anyone with a brain cell would have been excited to be a part of this film, still considered to be one of his best dramatic performances. However, 2 days into filming his scenes for Kristoff, which were only expected to take about 10 days to film, Hopper was unceremoniously let go from the set. Apparently Dennis had a contract in place with producer Scott Rudin that he would be fired should his work be unsatisfactory. He must have been pretty bad in the role, as the director Peter Weir has been described as extremely reluctant to ever remove an actor from a movie. Reports later surfaced that Hopper was basically half asleep while playing the character, and while Kristoff wasn't written to be like a manic man or anything, he did require some effort to be properly pulled off. Ultimately, Ed Harris stepped in to play the role after production had been desperately trying to replace Dennis to avoid having the film be shut down entirely. Thankfully that never happened, and The Truman Show has gone on to be one of the most depressingly heartfelt Jim Carrey performances ever. Oh, and Ed actually got nominated for an Oscar, so sorry Dennis, looks like it was a good move. Number 3. Jean-Claude Van Damme. The Belgian actor Jean-Claude Van Damme was just on the verge of coming into his own career as the Muscles from Brussels when he landed a job opposite of Arnold Schwarzenegger in 1987's action flick Predator. This sounded like the perfect casting choice. Jean would have worked alongside the likes of Carl Weathers and Jesse Ventura. While this may have turned out cool, the reality was that Jean wasn't casted to play one of the Marines at all. Instead, he was casted to play the titular Predator himself. The special effects artists behind the project called the experience with Jean as a hilarious comedy of errors, in which no party knew exactly what the other was expecting. Apparently nobody actually told him that the role was basically just a glorified stuntman. They were prepared to direct him to just hop around like a frog, but Jean was obviously confused and upset with that choice. According to him, he had just gotten off the boat and was under the impression that he was going to be showcasing his martial arts skills to the world, but instead he was reduced to a massive, slow-moving alien with dreadlocks. To the surprise of absolutely nobody, Van Damme was furious and dispirited about spending the entire movie cooped up in a clunky and often ridiculous-looking suit, and he was ultimately fired and replaced with Kevin Peter Hall. The idea that he was just on set being like, I can barely move in this thing, it makes me so happy. Number 2. Janet Hubert. Will Smith got his big break in the acting world thanks to the success of the sitcom Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. It's a show following Will as the titular prince living with a wealthy family in Bel-Air surrounded by cousins, uncles, and of course Aunt Vivian. In season 1, Aunt Viv was played by a woman named Janet Hubert Witten, but as a lot of people know, she was recasted after an on-set feud with Will Smith went a little bit too far. According to Will, Janet viewed him as an antagonist in her life. She had been in the business for years, and suddenly Will Smith popped into her life, and she had a tinge of jealousy towards him because he got into town, got a gig. Well, hey, that's what happens when you're good. She was trying to convince the producers to give her character more screen time and allow her to breathe on camera, but they said no because it wasn't the Aunt Viv show. She fought back hard, but it was ultimately decided that she would be asked to sit out the rest of the series and was replaced by Daphne Maxwell Reid, who is Aunt Viv. Number 1. Thomas Gibson. Thomas made a name for himself, starring as one of the leads of the series Criminal Minds. He was on the show for a few years, and in that time he made quite a few problems for those unfortunate enough to be staff members of the series. There were a few issues over the years that would have warranted some action, like screaming at producers and writers for not doing a good job. But the incident that got him kicked off of the show for good involved, well, a kick. In 2016, Thomas was swiftly fired from the series after an incident with a writer named Virgil Williams. An internal investigation revealed that Thomas kicked Virgil one day during production of an episode that Gibson was actually directing. And as I said, this isn't the first incident on set that really should have resulted in some kind of punishment, because 3 years earlier, in 2013, he pleaded no contest to no juice related reckless driving after being arrested under suspicion of DUI, and 3 years before that, he allegedly shoved an assistant director, Ian Wolfe, during a late night location scene. That led to the studio ordering Gibson to take 8 hours of anger management. According to most people on the set, Thomas was a wild card. Some days he was friendly and accommodating, and the next he went ballistic.
First up, we have Johnny Depp. Recently, one of Johnny Depp's past co-stars, Lola from the film Blow, came forward speaking about an incident where Johnny mistreated her on set, where he was angry and swearing, and he said some horrible things to her. Then there was a time when he was filming City of Lies when he got into a massive fight with the location manager of the shoot. He allegedly screamed at him and berated him in front of a full set of people, until Johnny's own bodyguards physically removed him from the scene. Yeah, this is not a good look for him. Johnny should have been the one who left Hollywood, not Amber Heard. Moving on to Lea Michele. Many people have spoken out against Lea Michele, but today we're going to talk about the time that Naya Rivera did not hold back when it came to dishing on her issues with her Glee co-star. This all happened in her tell-all 2016 book Sorry Not Sorry: Dreams, Mistakes, and Growing Up. Naya claimed that their friendship started to break down because her character started getting bigger plot lines and more screen time. Naya said Lea didn't like sharing a spotlight, which isn't that surprising. She claimed things got so bad between the two of them that they were barely speaking by the end of her time on the show. One of the writers of Glee once said that Lea and I were like two sides of the same battery. She also wrote, "We are both strong-willed, competitive, and not just with each other but with everyone, and that is not a good mix." Then in 2020, former Glee co-star Samantha Ware accused Lea of traumatic microaggressions that made her experience on the show a living hell. Angelica Ross was featured on AHS, but she had a horrible experience with her fellow actor Emma on set. Last year, Angelica provided screenshots of emails and detailed accounts of conversations with Ryan Murphy as he abruptly stopped communicating, during which no one in his company, Ryan Murphy Productions, would offer her any information about her status within the AHS franchise. Angelica then claimed that Emma could be a bullying presence on set, once going so far as to misgender her in front of a director. Angelica, who is trans, first spoke out about the alleged incident during an Instagram live. She said that she feared retaliation if she actually reported the incident, and she admitted that she no longer spoke to Emma after the alleged on-set encounter. Moving on to Tim Allen. Actress Casey Wilson opened up about her disappointing experience working with Tim in the Santa Clauses. She said it was truly the worst experience I've ever had with a co-star ever. Remembering one moment, she said Tim once finished a scene, then went to a producer to talk about her acting. He goes over to the producer, who was standing 4 feet from me, and goes, and I hear him, he says, "You have to tell her to stop stepping on my lines." The producer then turns to her with horror on his face, and he has to walk 1 foot to her, and he goes, Tim would ask you to stop stepping on his lines. She said everyone was walking on eggshells around him on set. When he was done, he was so effing rude. He never made eye contact and never said anything. It was really uncomfortable. Next up, we have Chevy Chase. Chevy has garnered a reputation for being extremely difficult to work with, as there are now countless accounts about him being disrespectful to his co-workers. He starred in the show Community, and he ruffled a lot of feathers on set, which resulted in his character eventually being killed off. He made a deal, aka got fired, with NBC to get him to leave the show following his use of a racial slur during an on-set rant about his character arc. which eventually resulted in him straight up walking off set. Chevy also never had a good relationship with the showrunner Dan Harmon. After he refused to film an important scene in season 3, Dan reportedly called him out at the wrap party. Chevy then left an angry voicemail on the showrunner's phone. And because of that, his character was seen no more, and that was that. Then there was his time on SNL. He was on Saturday Night Live for 2 years, and after leaving, he came on to host the show 8 times. But his 8th time hosting the show would be his last, after it was learned that Chevy hit cast member Sherry in the back of the head. Creator and producer Lorne Michaels then ended up banning Chevy from coming back on the show, but eventually he did return for some smaller roles. After hosting SNL in 1991, Steven was banned from the show by producer Lorne because he was difficult to work with. He generally acted like a prima donna in the week leading up to air, alienating himself from the show's cast and just being an all-round jerk. Those transgressions might have been forgiven if the actor had delivered anything other than the biggest train wreck in SNL's storied history. While they never got too specific, the crew admitted they did not like working with the martial artist and even found him annoying. The show's cast and crew were on the edge and almost ran an entire show without a host. But they stuck to it, and they would ban Steven right after he was done. In fact, the episode was so terrible that NBC had done all it legally can do to ensure that no one ever lays eyes on it again. No clips can be found on the network's website, for example, and the entire episode was omitted when the season was released to Netflix. Yikes. Moving on to Charlie Sheen. It's well known that Charlie has addiction problems, which led to many public meltdowns. But the actor really sabotaged his own career after leaving the hit sitcom under the worst circumstances possible. If you didn't know, he was fired from 2.5 Men in 2011 after making derogatory comments about the show's creator, Chuck Lorre. And from then on, things went from bad to worse. At that point, Charlie was the highest paid actor on television, making $1.8 million per episode. But he claimed that he was being underpaid, and he publicly demanded a 50% pay rise. Now, this is the most entitled thing I have ever heard. He was then rightfully fired, and Ashton Kutcher was then hired to be the replacement of Charlie on the show. Charlie then went on to multiple news shows to be interviewed. These interviews were filled with weird rants, including him stating that he had a tiger blood and that he was #winning. Next up, we have Thomas Gibson. Thomas had a great television run, but it was all brought down after he was fired from the hit show Criminal Minds. In early August of 2016, Thomas was suspended from Criminal Minds due to an on-set physical altercation with one of the show's writers/producers. It is rumored that he kicked them due to a line of dialogue that he thought did not make sense, which isn't the appropriate reaction, of course. He was suspended, and then later he was fired from the show. Now, this wasn't his first incident on the show though, as he allegedly shoved an assistant director and then got into a verbal altercation. After that, he went to mandatory anger management counseling, but it seems like the counseling didn't help because then he continued those patterns, which ultimately got him fired. Due to this, he hasn't had an acting gig in quite a while, which is a shame because he is definitely talented, but no one wants to deal with him behind the camera because of his temper. Moving on to Shannon Doherty. Shannon's breakout role was in the 90s drama Beverly Hills 90210, but while she was there, she earned a reputation as a difficult actress. Her co-star Jason Priestley described her diva-like behavior in his book. He said that she even complained when a publicist had a town car pick her up instead of a limo. Producer Aaron Spelling characterized her in a slightly more sympathetic light, telling People magazine that she is a very honest person who wears her emotions on her sleeve. And if you ask her a direct question, she'll give you a direct answer. But it seems like her co-stars did not appreciate her honesty. As it was revealed in Lifetime's The Unauthorized Beverly Hills 90210 story, Shannon's co-workers voted her off the show, and then the character moved to the Royal Academy of Dramatic Arts in London and never returned. Moving on to Edward Norton. It was said that Edward doesn't work well with others and was instead replaced by Mark Ruffalo. After his departure, Marvel Studios' president released a statement hinting at a lack of collaborative spirit on Edward's part, saying, "We have made the decision not to bring Ed Norton back to portray the title role of Bruce Banner in the Avengers. Our decision is definitely not one based on monetary factors, but instead it's rooted in the need for an actor who embodies creativity and collaborative spirit of our other talented cast." cast members. The Avengers demands players who thrive working as a part of an ensemble, as evidenced by Robert, Chris H, Chris E, Sam, Scarlett, and all of our talented cast. We're looking to announce a named actor who fulfills these requirements and is passionate about the iconic role in the upcoming weeks. With something as big as the MCU, which is literally an ensemble franchise, I think they made the right call. But how can you be an actor and not work well with others? That just does not make any sense.
First, we have the late Chadwick Boseman. Chadwick landed one of his first acting roles in the soap opera All My Children. Chadwick enjoyed his first week of filming, but thought his character was written stereotypically black, and so he mustered up the courage to say something, expressing his opinion on the writing to some of his higher-ups. Well, the conversation didn't go well as he expected, and Chadwick was let go from the show after only 1 week. Yikes. Fired for standing up for what he believed in. That has gotta hurt. But the story ends on a semi-humorous note, as Chadwick was replaced with his future co-star Michael B. Jordan, who went on to play Chadwick's character for over 3 years. Chadwick went on to have an extraordinary career, notably as the titular role in the Black Panther series, which landed him a spot on the Times 100 Most Influential People list for 2018. Sadly, Chadwick passed away 2 years later from colon cancer, but we will always remember his talent and his willingness to speak up for what he believed in. Next on the list of celebs who got fired is Charlie Sheen. A lot of us know this story as it graced the tabloids of every major news source for over 1 year. Charlie was starring in the hit CBS show 2.5 Men, where he was making nearly $2 million in episode. Charlie seemed on top of the world until he wasn't. In March 2011, Sheen was fired from the show after he began making a string of negative comments about series creator Chuck Lorre in multiple online and network television interviews. At the time, Sheen was reportedly struggling with addiction and faced serious allegations from multiple women. One incident occurred on Christmas morning in 2009, where Charlie reportedly put his hands around his wife's throat and threatened to kill her. He spent the rest of the day in jail. Merry Christmas, Charlie. Our next celebrity is Julianne Moore. We know Julianne from movies like May December, Dear Evan Hansen, Crazy Stupid Love, and of course, The Hunger Games. But not all of Julianne's movie contracts have ended in a happy ending. Julianne was cast to star in the award-winning drama Can You Ever Forgive Me? But creative differences between her and the director resulted in her getting fired. Apparently, Julianne felt the character should have a prosthetic nose and wear a fat suit, but the director strongly disagreed. The role ended up going to Melissa McCarthy, who was nominated for an Oscar for the portrayal of the character. I watched the movie last year, guys, and honestly, I cannot see the role being played by anybody else other than Miss McCarthy. The award nominations were very, very well deserved. Alrighty, guys, next we have Lori Loughlin. This is one of the wildest stories you will hear today, I can guarantee it, and it involves rowing and lying. Lori Loughlin, known as Aunt Becky on the hit 90s sitcom Full House, was enjoying a thriving acting career, bringing her iconic character back to life for the new Netflix reboot Fuller House, until disaster struck and she got caught buying her daughter's way into the University of Southern California as a rowing athlete. Her daughter, Olivia Jade, is a famous influencer and model, far from a rowing athlete. Lori reportedly paid $500,000 US to a college admissions officer and spent 2 months behind bars for the ordeal. Since the scandal, her daughter Olivia Jade is constantly flooded with comments on her TikTok like, "How's the rowing going, Olivia? Sore after a long day of practice?" Lori was eventually fired from her role on Fuller House, as well as her contract with Hallmark. Sorry, Lori Loughlin fans, I guess you won't be getting a Christmas blessing too anytime soon. Our next celebrity on the celebs who got fired list is a longtime co-star of Lori Loughlin's Miss Candace Cameron. Just a quick warning, guys, this story involves quite a bit of homophobia. Candace was known for Full House, as well as her starring role in Fuller House, and also her starring roles in Hallmark movies, until her homophobic and proud comments came to the forefront. But let's back up a moment to her drama with a Fuller House co-star. This co-star played a queer character on the show for 4 episodes and shared some behind-the-scenes tea on TikTok. She said, "I remember I got sat down by the writers in the studio to basically warn me how this person allegedly was trying to get the character removed and not have a queer character on the show," adding that she was also warned and prepared that the Fuller House star's fan base might also target her. Yikes. Now, some even more tea. Candace was starring in multiple Hallmark Christmas movies until she suddenly got fired from the company. And nobody knew why until in 2022 she began a new Christmas movie company where she states keeps traditional marriage at the forefront, aka only straight couples. My guess is that Candace did not like the direction Hallmark was going in, adding gay couples to some of their movies, and she voiced her opinion and got let go. Now, let's chat about Miss Anne Hathaway. Did you know Anne was originally set to star in Judd Apatow's Knocked Up? But there was one scene they just could not agree on. Apparently Anne really wanted Judd to cut that huge childbirthing scene, or at least make it a little less graphic, but he wasn't willing to budge, and unfortunately it cost Anne the role. Katherine Heigl went on to star in the highly successful comedy, and Anne moved on with her career. Anne commented on the subject saying, "My issue with it was that having not experienced motherhood myself, I didn't know how I was gonna feel on the other side about giving birth. And by the way, I could pop a kid out and think, oh well, I really should have done that movie." Well, Anne had nothing to worry about as her career was about to take off even more. Anne won an Oscar 6 years later in 2013 for her role in 2012's Les Mis, a movie remake of the Broadway musical. For the role, Anne reportedly dropped 25 pounds by eating only oatmeal paste each day. In addition to her deprived food intake, she stated she also deprived herself emotionally for the role. To properly descend into the darkness required for the role, Hathaway says she sent her husband, Adam Schulman, back to the US so that she could get into the character's mental space alone while filming in London, England. She needed to go further into that negative place to play the character, and she states, "I love him so much that I was like, you're making me happy, you're keeping me up, and I'm clawing to the sides of my life, and I need to fall into a pit, and you need to go, honey." She apparently also became increasingly temperamental. There was one day when, I kid you not, I picked a fight with him because he wouldn't watch a sunset with me, Hathaway said, adding that I was dealing with a lot of darkness and I was starving, so it wasn't that much fun to be around. Our next celebrity is Christian Bale. We all know Christian from his early breakout hit American Psycho, playing the sociopathic serial killer Patrick Bateman. But did you know that Christian was reportedly fired from the role and replaced with Leonardo DiCaprio, as they wanted a bigger name to attach to the film? DiCaprio quit soon before filming and Christian was back. Bale went on to have an insanely successful career, notably appearing as Batman in Batman Begins, The Dark Knight, and The Dark Knight Rises. But when Warner Brothers decided to do one more installment of the franchise with Christian, he reportedly fired himself, believing that the previous director of the franchise wouldn't want a fourth movie. Next is a bit of an intense situation, and it involves Miss Amber Heard. Now, we all know Amber has been in the media over the last few years for, let's just say, not the best stuff. The infamous Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard trial of 2022 included some troubling details about Amber. Johnny Depp stated that Amber would poo in their bed on purpose and repeatedly punch him. He said she would also have affairs frequently with male celebs such as James Franco and her ex Elon Musk. Yikes. The live streams of the trial garnered over 100 million total views, becoming one of the most talked about trials in recent history. Amber was found guilty and has to pay $15 million to Johnny Depp. That's a lot of money. Well, after the trial, it was rumored that Amber had been fired from her starring role in Aquaman 2, and everybody thought it made quite a bit of sense. But reports say her ex-boyfriend, Mr. Elon Musk, had one of his litigators send a scorched earth letter to Warner Brothers threatening to burn the house down if the actress wasn't brought back for a sequel. And Warner Brothers obliged. Now, let's discuss Ryan Gosling's story. We know Ryan from movies such as La La Land, Blade Runner, The Notebook, Crazy Stupid Love, and he has been nominated for numerous awards, including a Golden Globe Award, 2 Oscar nominations, and 6 Screen Actors Guild Awards. But Ken from Barbie wasn't always living the dream life. In 2008, Ryan was cast in the film The Lovely Bones as the role of the dad. In preparation for the role, he gained 60 pounds as he believed the role would be better served heavy set. When he arrived on set for the first day of filming, the studio did not agree with Gosling's decision to gain a mass amount of weight and let him go. Ryan said, quote, "I just showed up on set and I had gotten it wrong. Then I was fat and unemployed." Last but not least, we have Megan Fox. You might know her as Machine Gun Kelly's ex when the tabloids captured every moment of their breakup. But Megan is no stranger to tabloid gossip and controversy. In 2009, Megan told a news outlet that the director of Transformers Dark of the Moon was, quote, "a nightmare to work with." Yikes. Executive producer Steven Spielberg reportedly said to, quote, "fire her right now." Spielberg is known to be a calm and focused man, but I guess that comment was a little bit too far for him. Megan's representatives denied this statement and said she herself chose not to return for any more Transformers movies. Who was right? I guess we'll never know.
Starting off the list at number 10 is Chloe Grace Moretz. The poor girl was forced out of Disney even though she had a squeaky clean record. It was for a pretty simple reason. They found someone better. Well, in their opinion, that is. If you remember the 2008 Disney movie Bolt, you will remember that Miley Cyrus was the voice of the main character named Penny. However, Miley actually wasn't the original person who was supposed to have the role. It was actually given to Chloe first. She did all of her recordings for the entire movie before Disney decided to replace her last minute. The reasoning was that Miley's fame was on the rise at the time and they wanted to use a bigger star and a bigger name. The only good news to this story is that even though they fired her from the role, they did keep some of her voice work to use as a younger Penny and still gave her credit in the movie. But the majority of her hard work was wiped out, which she may still be holding a grudge towards because years later she was attached to the new live-action Little Mermaid film but left the project on her own because she was too busy. Too busy or a little bitter? We may never know. At number 9 is Jake Paul. You would know him as one of the most famous, loudest, and most obnoxious YouTubers in the whole world. He's both loved and hated by many people. It really just depends if you can handle his personality or not. Outside of his YouTube career, he started to get involved in other projects, and one of them led him to starring on the Disney show Bizaardvark. The show actually helped him reach some legitimate fame, but some of his behavior on YouTube led him to getting fired from the show. They simply couldn't support the incidents he was getting himself involved in. The thing is, Jake went on to say that leaving the show was his decision, but I feel like we all know what's up and what really went down. However, I will let you guys decide the truth. Tell me down in the comments which story you believe. Was he fired or did he quit? Up next at number 8 is Mitchell Musso. People fell in love with this Disney star when he took on the role of Oliver in the Hannah Montana series. He was Miley Cyrus's hilarious best friend. From there, he continued a successful career with Disney, doing voiceover work in the show Phineas and Ferb, and then went on to star on another Disney show called Pair of Kings. He had a great reputation in the Disney universe, but things started to go south. He was forced to leave earlier than planned after he was arrested for a DUI back in 2011. The arrest itself was bad enough, but what made everything worse was that his blood alcohol level was significantly over the limit, and he was only 20 years old at the time. So he wasn't even legal or old enough to be drinking. Turns out that he spent a few hours in the drunk tank and was released when he was in a better state. He was fired from the show immediately and hasn't worked with them ever since. He hasn't worked much in general ever since, to be honest. Which is a shame because I actually loved him on Hannah Montana. Sliding into the number 7 spot is Megan Mullally. Depending on how old you are, you might know her from a few different TV shows. Younger fans probably know her as Tammy from the show Parks and Recreation, and older fans know her as Karen Walker from Will and Grace. I am older fans. I know her from Will and Grace. Most people don't know that she was actually attached to a Disney project during her time on that show. She was hired to do voiceover work for a character in Finding Nemo. It's been reported that the studio told her she could use whatever voice she wanted to do with that character, so that's what she did. She didn't want to do that really high-pitched, annoying, squeaky Karen voice, but that's what they were hoping for. Turns out that she refused to do that voice, and they ended up firing her from the movie. She'd already started recording for the part, and every time she would get in the recording booth, she was was encouraged to raise her voice higher. When speaking about it, she said, "That voice was used for boozy, sharp-tongued Karen Walker on Will and Grace, so why would Disney want to be associated with that?" You know, she raises a good point. And at number 6 is Jake T. Austin. He rose to fame when he played Selena Gomez's brother on the Disney series Wizards of Waverly Place. From there, his career continued with Disney Productions, and he later starred on an ABC family show called The Fosters. But he started making some headlines for some bad behavior. It all started at the 2014 Teen Choice Awards when he approached the gifting suite backstage and security didn't allow him in because they didn't recognize him. That's never a humbling moment for an actor. Jake ended up throwing a big tantrum and he started screaming, swearing, and throwing things. And yes, he pulled the classic line, "Do you know who I am?" But then he quickly answered his own question and said, I quote, "I'm a presenter. Who the f are you?" Disney didn't stand for his little freak out moment and fired him not too long after from his role on The Fosters. He also had legal issues on his record. He was charged as an underage drinker and was also involved in a 4-car hit and run crash. So they had more than one reason backing up their decision to let him go. Halfway through the list at number 5 is Lainey. Yes, she goes by one name. If you were a Lizzie McGuire fan, you would know Lainey for playing her best friend Miranda. She was one of Disney's biggest stars at the time, starring alongside Hilary Duff on that wildly popular show. But out of nowhere, Lainey went MIA and we didn't see her character in the last few episodes of the series. Not only that, but when the Lizzie McGuire movie came out later on, everyone reprised their role except for her. In the movie, they said that her character was on vacation with her family in Mexico. Fans were wondering what actually was going down behind the scenes, and turns out she was let go by Disney. She was having some personal struggles and was arrested for possession of meth in 2008, so it was pretty serious. She hid her problems for a while until she started to miss court dates and had a warrant out for her arrest. She was basically forced to plead guilty of the possession no matter what because of all the times that she was skipping out on court. However, we recently found out that there is going to be a Lizzie McGuire reboot, so we're going to have to wait and see if Miranda will show up this time, or if she's even invited. Next up at number 4 is Steve Whitmire. His name might not sound familiar to you, but his voice would. He was the voice of Kermit the Frog for 27 years. He was known for being the Green Frog up until he was fired in 2017 for reasons we aren't really sure of. It was in July that year that news hit the internet saying Matt Vogel would be replacing him. Steve finally came forward and explained that Disney actually fired him way back in October, but was only making it public now because they had a replacement for him. The studio said that he was fired due to, I quote, "unacceptable business conduct that they asked him to work on for months." Apparently he didn't show up to set sometimes, and he sent emails in which he attacked the writers and director. However, Steve tells it differently and says they had a disagreement on the new scripts they were creating for the new ABC series. One disagreement they had was the script said Kermit lied to his nephew Robin about his breakup with Miss Piggy. Steve was firm on his beliefs that Kermit wouldn't lie to him. So it all just kinda seems like they weren't getting on the same page about a lot of things. But really, to fire someone? I don't know. Here we are, number 3 with Ryan Gosling. Remember when he was a mousekeeper with Britney Spears and Justin Timberlake all those years ago? Well, apparently 12-year-old Ryan had a bit of an attitude problem while starring on the Mickey Mouse Club. His attitude was so bad, it's the reason he was fired. During an interview in 2008, he spoke about it and said that he was considered to be such a bad influence on his other co-stars that their mothers actually complained to the studio about it. At that point, he was told by the studio that he basically wasn't Disney material because they needed someone mature enough to educate a young audience about mature topics. I'm not sure what they really expected from a 12-year-old. Disney would have never hired me at 12 years old. Despite being let go, it's safe to say his career did not suffer because of it. Taking over spot number 2 is PewDiePie. He's the biggest YouTube star pretty much of all time. He's made a life for himself simply by his YouTube channel, and because he was making so much money on the platform, he was signed by Disney for some deals. They had him on their roster to have him involved in promotions and any other lineups that they had in store for him. But only 1 month after signing a deal with them, they decided to fire him and called off the deal. Why? Because one of his YouTube videos was completely inappropriate to be under a name like Disney. He posted a video that showed 2 men laughing together as they held up a sign reading "Death to all Jews." The video caused tons of controversy and was eventually removed. PewDiePie admitted he had paid the 2 men to do it and issued an apology saying that he was simply kidding. But Disney quickly cut ties with him, joking or not. Taking the number 1 spot on our list is Bella Thorne. The actress actress has been open about her time on Disney and all the struggles she faced when it came to the pressure of having that Disney image. She told a story of the time she was almost fired when she was 12 after she took a picture on a beach in a black bikini that her mom had bought her. They said it was too much skin and threatened to kick her off Shake It Up, the TV series that she starred in. But more recently in 2016, she spoke about how she left Disney and turns out that they terminated her contract as soon as her show came to an end. The good news is she was happy about it. She told Nylon, I quote, "When I got off the Disney Channel, I stopped listening to people telling me what I needed to be this and that. I literally would talk with a higher voice in interviews because that was the whole innocent Disney appeal." Needless to say, being let go was just a blessing in disguise for her.
Amber Heard brings new allegations against Jason Momoa. For those of you who've forgotten about Amber Heard, you're not alone. If it weren't for her public battle with her ex-husband Johnny Depp, no one would probably even care about this woman, but thanks to the trial and the Netflix documentary that really didn't need all those jump cuts and edits of influencers' comments to get attention, recently she's returned to the front page thanks to her role in the upcoming Aquaman sequel in December. Since the whole Johnny situation, there had been rumors about her role in the film spreading online. Many people believed that her character would be written out of the movie or at least have some of her scenes cut. Well, according to Amber herself, there's actually a ton of stuff that went on behind the scenes of the latest Aquaman adventure regarding Elon Musk and Jason Momoa, two names that I honestly never thought I would put into the same sentence, but here we are. A notepad found from the trial last year had some pretty interesting information scribbled on its pages. Amber Heard's therapist, Dr. Don Hughes, had given the pad as evidence in the trial. The notes describe a toxic work environment on set of Aquaman 2 with Jason Momoa being the main antagonist. She alleged that not only was Jason intoxicated for a majority of filming, but that he was pushing for the studio to fire her entirely. But we all know Amber. When something happens to her, there needs to be details and an Oscar-worthy retelling. She claimed that Jason dressed like Johnny Depp to hurt her feelings, even wearing all of his rings just to egg her on. As it goes, anything Amber Heard says should be taken with a grain of salt, because literally hours after these comments and claims were made public, executives at DC spoke back against them. They claimed that Jason was actually extremely professional on set, being coherent the entire time. Several crew and fellow cast also backed up the studio heads, adding that Jason was never actually intoxicated on set. Not to say he didn't enjoy no juice, he just, waited until after work, and it wasn't a constant thing. One of the production assistants even commented that Jason and Amber were seen joking together on set and honestly had a great time. There is no Blu-ray version of this movie out yet, but we can imagine there's going to be some pretty interesting behind the scenes footage of them together. Amber Heard declined to comment on the notes or even acknowledge that they existed, but another source close to Amber confirmed that these notes did refer to the Aquaman set from 2021. Jason was not the only Aquaman member called out in the paperwork though. There were several notes scribbled about Amber feeling unsupported by the director of the film, James Wan, claiming that he treated her like a pariah because of her legal battle with Johnny Depp. She claimed that James would raise his voice at her and demand that she keep secrets to herself regarding the film, going so far as to banning her from taking selfies with the cast and crew. Now, James has so far been unavailable to comment because he's got other things to worry about, like being a good director. However, the same DC spokesperson who defended Jason also came to the defense of James Wan. James has always been known for creating a collaborative and positive work environment on everything from the Saw franchise to Fast and Furious 7. This dude has an interesting career. One thing that was revealed was that Amber Heard was in fact nearly fired from the set of Aquaman 2, but it actually had nothing to do with her trial. The DC rep explained that there was a time following the release of Aquaman 1 in which James was ready to let Amber go. The main reason was that he felt that there was a lack of chemistry between herself and Jason, which is fair enough. Anyone who has seen this movie can understand that statement and more than likely agrees with it. Amber Heard has always just kind of felt jammed into the DC universe, but I could talk about that forever. Let's just stick to the hot goss. So ultimately, the studio never went forward with firing Amber, and it was all thanks to the CEO of Tesla and her former lover, Elon Musk. Now, there's not a ton of information on this aspect of the situation, so I'm just going to share with I was able to find out. Back in 2019, Elon had one of his litigators send a scorched earth letter to Warner Brothers, threatening to tear the house down if the actress was left out of the sequel. Warner Brothers caved and moved forward. Imagine being so geeky and so rich that you could literally bully an entire studio into doing your bidding. Where was he when Iron Man was sacrificing himself for the entire universe? Right now, DC as a studio is in a weird place, with Guardians of the Galaxy director James Gunn and Peter Safran taking over and planning to scrap the existing film universe altogether. Aquaman 2 is actually the last movie that's going to be released under the old regime of DC. To say that this year has been rough for the company would be an understatement. Between The Flash and Blue Beetle, the company has lost millions of dollars. There's still a ton of hope for the Aquaman sequel because first movie made around like $1.15 billion worldwide.
Great success.
Anticipation may be high, but so far the sequel has undergone major reshoots and edits because apparently test audiences just hate it so much. Out of 100, the film was testing around the low 60s before it was recut last year. The biggest issue that the studio is having with the project is that there's the last piece of evidence that there used to be an established movie universe, a universe that nobody wants to take ownership of. Reshoots continued right up until the strike started this past May. Aquaman 2 is not just the last Snyderverse DC movie, but it's also the last time we may ever see Jason Momoa as Aquaman. With the change in management, James Gunn has made it known that there is going to be a new DC universe with new actors, characters, and stories. James is no stranger to making bad things good. He took an obscure and forgotten Marvel comic and turned them into 3 box office beasts with Guardians of the Galaxy, and not to mention making the world forget that there ever was a DC movie with Will Smith in it. Nope, just Idris Elba being afraid of rats. That's all I want. Not long ago, he actually publicly announced who would and who would not be returning to this new DCEU. The entire cast of the Suicide Squad will return, including John Cena as Peacemaker and Viola Davis as Amanda Waller. Another confirmed addition to the surprise of everybody is Xolo Maridueña as Blue Beetle, which was the biggest box office blunder in the last 10 years. This means that Amber has effectively been fired from her role in the DCEU. Her character is just gonna be left into the final product of this one because no one really cares. Seeing as she filmed her scenes over 2 years ago, it's not like she has much of a say in what's gonna happen to her character. For all we know, the opening credits is Amber swimming in deep water and then she's suddenly swallowed whole by a whale or something like that. Heck, they might even do it off screen and edit her out completely. We honestly won't know until we see Aquaman 2 in December. Since the news of Amber has broken, there have been a few key details revealed. First and foremost, there have been at least 2 confirmed scenes cut involving Amber. One was an action sequence seeing her character facing off against Black Manta, the main villain of the movie, and the other was a love scene with Jason, which I think we can all agree we're not gonna miss that one. Getting back to Jason and Amber for a moment though, you're probably wondering what other allegations there are against Jason Momoa. There really aren't many. Amber is claiming that Jason was intentionally wearing Johnny Depp's clothes on set to mess with her, wearing his jewelry and wearing his hair the same. Okay, I'm sorry Amber, but that's kinda what Jason always looks like. Seriously, 9 times out of 10 when this guy is spotted in public, yes, he wears a ton of rings. Yes, he occasionally has his hair pulled back similar to the style of Johnny Depp. And yes, they both wear sunglasses a lot. But that's not new, okay? Since Game of Thrones, this guy has dressed like a Los Angeles yoga master. I have literally never seen someone more comfortable in public. His style is him. He has chains and rings and necklaces and a beard and long hair. So because he exists like this, he must be making Amber feel bad on purpose. It's not his fault that he looks like Johnny Depp. A lot of dudes in Hollywood look like Johnny Depp. It doesn't mean they want to make Amber Heard uncomfortable. When the news first broke about the Johnny and Amber trial, there was actually an online petition that was circulating calling for Amber's character to be recasted entirely from Aquaman 2. The petition received thousands of signatures, but as we all know, that didn't do anything. While her trial was being aired on the internet every single day, the studio was just trying to figure out the best way to handle the situation. The allegations being brought against Jason Momoa are a little iffy to say the least, and extremely convenient considering that the movie is set to release in 2 2 months? For all we know, this was a deliberate move made by Amber Heard to sabotage the release of this movie. I mean, come on, what a better way to derail a project than by claiming that the leading man was mean and tipsy on set. Even if it weren't for the almost hundreds of crew members that witnessed this thing get made from start to finish who were calling BS on Amber's accusations, I don't think anyone would still buy this. Yes, Flip from Slumberland was being mean to you. This guy. Come to think of it, put a pair of shades on that guy and it's Johnny Depp. Dang it, I was wrong. This guy's a menace. Now, obviously, I don't know what happened on the set of Aquaman. This is an entertainment-based video and it needs to be taken with a massive grain of salt, but based on the pre-existing evidence, the multiple eyewitness accounts, just so much information, I think that we all know where this story is heading. Hopefully I'll be able to tell you where that is next time.
At number 10, Kris Jenner. Simply titled Kris, the momager of the Kardashian clan, starred in a 6-week test run of her talk show. Not only did it receive terrible reviews, but it was cancelled before it was even picked up. Frank Sisha, Senior VP and President of Programming at Fox TVS, admitted he knew by the time the test ended the show was not going to work. He claimed Jenner was uninteresting, trying to capitalize on her own name, and didn't have the ability to entertain. When the cameras were on, she looked like a deer in headlights, she had trouble reading the prompter, and the conversations she would have with her guests almost felt like she was trying to take some kind of survey with the most basic questions like where are you from and what's your hobby. He did praise her hard work, but ultimately the project was a flop from the start. In fact, the studio later received hate mail aimed towards Kris, claiming her show would have been one of the worst moves for the Kardashian family ever. At number 9, Martin Short. Martin Short has had 2 shows with his name attached in his lifetime. The more popular and longer lasting of the 2 was his 1-season talk show, The Martin Short Show, which was a simple late night talk show with a few sketches between A and B. The short-lived predecessor was a sketch show of the same name. The premise was Marty playing himself in a sitcom about his day-to-day before going on stage as a talk show host. Very meta indeed. As you may expect, the format was a little weird. Studio execs were complaining that it felt like a rip-off of Seinfeld with a bit too much time spent on the talk show portion of things. After 3 episodes were filmed and edited, a test audience was brought in and the decision was unanimous. It sucked. At number 8, Jada Pinkett Smith. Jada and her husband Will have made headlines in the news several times over the years, usually for something bad like infidelity or face smacking, but earlier this year it was announced that her Facebook talk show, Red Table Talk, was going to be cancelled following several years online. The decision was made following the distribution company's shift to no longer produce independent content. Despite having a pretty solid slew of guests, the topics tended to drift into the too much information realm, with her sit-down with her husband Will Smith being one of the most revealing episodes. The show featured Jada, her mother Adrienne Banfield Norris, and her daughter Willow Smith discussing various topics, with mom Jada being the main host when it came time to the heavy one-on-ones. Jada herself has been shaded in controversy over the past few years as infidelity rumors seem to be brought up more and more. Her show was taken off the internet, and despite trying to find a new home elsewhere, it's looking like the show will never see the light of day again. At number 7, Sarah Silverman. Sarah is a very popular stand-up comedian. These days, she's out on the picket lines of the SAG strike with her fellow performers, but a few years ago, she was sitting cozy on the set of her very own talk show called I Love You America. The show was aimed to give Sarah an outlet to poke fun at the current political and emotional landscape of the country. She would also from time to time bring on various celebrity guests to discuss their past and share stories. There was a lot going on for Sarah, whether it was connecting with firemen in Texas over making accidents in their pants or going on a blind date with a conservative lobbyist in DC. She was never holding back. The show was actually pretty well received among Sarah's fans, but the executives over at Hulu did not appreciate the content of the show. Apparently, big budget studios don't like it when you get politics involved. The show only lasted 1 season, including 21 episodes, and it was nominated for an Emmy in 2018 for Outstanding Variety Sketch Series before its untimely demise. At number 6, TJ Miller. Before being accused of misconduct by several women, Miller was on the hot streak starring in Silicon Valley and the Deadpool franchise. In 2017, he was given a green light to host an 8-episode talk series called The Gorburger Show, but unlike normal talk shows, this was meant to act as both a talk show and a straight-up TV series. Miller voiced a massive blue puppet monster named Gorburger. The alien takes a Japanese talk show hostage as he learns what it means to be a true human from various celebrity guests, including Tig Notaro, Larry King, Rob Corddry, and Reggie Watts. The show was created after the success of the short sketch series of the same name on the Funny or Die YouTube channel. In fact, it ran for 2 seasons on YouTube before being picked up for television. The concept was neat and had clearly been working online, however the show was cancelled after only 8 episodes due to the lack of star power they were able to land on the show. Some say the show was cancelled due to the allegations brought against Miller, as the cancellation announcement came only 1 week after the news began to make headlines. At number 5, Khloe Kardashian. The Kardashian family have tried many tactics over the years to increase their never-ending flow of cash. Like when Khloe decided she wanted to do something outside of keeping up with the Kardashians while still being her real authentic self. An online media outlet called FYI greenlit a talk series starring Khloe and her celebrity guests indulging in drinks while chatting, calling it Cocktails with Khloe, but with a K of course. She essentially created an environment where she could be paid to drink and chat with her friends, which is exactly what the show became. Unable to secure a list of celebrities, she forced her family to appear on the show along with several of her reality star friends, and some of her sisters even forced their friends to appear, like Snoop Dogg and Chrissy Teigen. Khloe acted as a producer of the series and would regularly clash with basically everyone on staff about what direction the show would go in. The drama, combined with the behavior of Khloe behind the scenes, caused them to cancel the show, releasing only 14 episodes of the planned 23. At number 4, George Lopez. George Lopez was once one of the most bankable men around. His comedic talents and eccentric personality made him instantly entertaining, so much so that he was given his own sitcom in the 90s, but we're here to talk about his talk show, Lopez Tonight. The show first aired in November 2009 on TBS. It actually didn't feature all that many celebrity guests and mainly relied on audience interaction and George's wild energy. He did have some guests appear, with Kobe Bryant and Ellen DeGeneres being the most notable. Unfortunately, at the end of 2010, there was a massive feud between The Tonight Show and Conan O'Brien that caused him to quit the series and sign on with TBS to create his own show. This meant that Lopez would be pushed from a primetime 11 p.m. slot to the less exciting midnight spot. This move caused a steep decline in ratings, and as of August 2011, they decided to cancel the show entirely. The short-lived show will be remembered as a good time, as the decline only came from the time change. At number 3, Sharon Osbourne. A couple of years ago on the popular talk show The Talk, hosts Cheryl Underwood and Sharon Osbourne began to discuss the topic of race. They were talking about the recent firing of Sharon's personal friend Piers Morgan from Good Morning Britain over a series of comments he made live on air. Sharon went off and began aggressively defending her friend, asking Cheryl what Piers said specifically that was racist. She then went on to say that she was being put in an electric chair, and due to her connection to Piers, that she herself must agree with his statements. She went on to clarify that she did not support his comments per se, but she did support his right to free speech, but he used that free speech to say offensive things, so maybe don't support him. She then asked Cheryl over and over again what she had done wrong. What has she done or said? Cheryl then signed off for a commercial break before Sharon let out some choice expletives. When they returned, the tension almost seemed worse and the conversation continued to escalate. Not long after the altercation, Sharon was asked to exit the show to avoid further backlash. At number 2, Jay Leno and Conan O'Brien. In 2004, NBC announced that late-night host Conan O'Brien would be taking over as the full-time host of The Tonight Show, replacing Jay Leno in 5 years' time. When those 5 years passed and it was time to upgrade, NBC did not want to lose Leno to another network, so they gave him his own talk show in a primetime spot. The Jay Leno Show failed to capture an audience, and The Tonight Show with Conan O'Brien was not an instant rating smash. By the early 2010s, NBC had dismissed Conan and threw Jay back into the fold. Then Jay became public enemy number 1 because people thought he was the reason Conan lost his job. Oprah invited Leno to come onto the show to share his side of the story, and he didn't do much to save face. He wrote the entire thing off as a dramatic mess and then decided to play the victim card, claiming he felt sucker punched by backlash. He also admitted that when he announced his eventual resignation, that he was 100% lying to everyone's face. He then argued very passive-aggressively that NBC was right because under Conan's poor ratings, it marked, in his words, the first time in 60 years of The Tonight Show that it would have lost money. A poll was conducted on Oprah's website, and the consensus was that 96% of the audience hated Leno and missed Conan. Eventually, Leno was replaced by Jimmy Fallon, and Conan's show, Conan, was a massive hit. And at number 1, Lilly Singh. Lilly got her start on YouTube in 2010, but quickly became a very successful woman both in film and on television, being casted in projects like Bad Moms, Ice Age, and Dr. Cabby. In 2019, Lilly was offered a chance to host her own late-night talk show, A Little Late with Lilly Singh. The show was meant to be a follow-up to the popular show Last Call with Carson Daly, with Chrissy Teigen being offered the job at first, which she turned down so NBC then gave the job to Lily. The moment the show premiered, things started going downhill fast. While fans of Lily were tuning in and loving it, anyone else on the planet was annoyed, confused, and a little bit angry. The first episode has been summarized by thousands of reviews as "white men bad, Lily is bi, end of show." Her show received massive amounts of hate, quickly garnering a 1-star review of 10 on IMDb, something I have literally never seen while researching a topic. The hate continued towards Lily for 2 more seasons before she announced the show was being cancelled. She simultaneously announced a deal with Netflix, setting herself up to star in a new show.
Kicking off our list is Hilary Duff. She became a teen icon when she took on the role of Lizzie McGuire, but sadly all good things cannot last forever. Preteens were devastated all over the world when the series came to an end, but were thrilled when they announced the Lizzie McGuire movie. Everyone was hoping there'd be a sequel, but apparently the reason it didn't happen was because of a money dispute. According to Entertainment Weekly, the sequel was cancelled when Hilary's mom, Susan Duff, wouldn't accept Disney's deal for it. It was reported that she was offered a $500,000 bonus for the sequel if the first one reached $50 million, but the momager wanted to receive the bonus immediately rather than waiting. She spoke on it and said, "Disney thought they'd be able to bully us into accepting whatever offer they wanted to make, and they couldn't. We walked away from a sequel, they walked away from the franchise." Boom. Next up in spot number 9 is Steve Whitmire, also known as Kermit the Frog. The voice actor and puppeteer was fired from Disney for a few different reasons, but it's been reported that money was part of it. One of the reasons was because he refused to work on a particular project because of a contract dispute involving him wanting more money. According to THR, Disney and the Muppet Studios said his way of negotiation delayed productions and said that they had issues with him for many years. Turns out issues with him demanding more money goes back to the early days when he was actually on Sesame Street, where he voiced Ernie and Kermit for years. Side note, I had no idea that it was one actor playing both parts. Just saying, you learned something new today. A source spoke on it and said, "People think he left Sesame Street to focus on the Muppets. He was actually fired for demanding too much money." Well, you know what they say, it's not easy being green. Get it? Stealing the number 8 spot is J-Lo. We've seen her star in a variety of movies, but people loved seeing her as a judge on American Idol in season 10. But in July 2012, she announced to Ryan Seacrest that she decided not to return for the next season so that she could focus on her music career and 2 children. But then articles started surfacing revealing that she was actually let go by Fox because she was asking for a $2 million raise in her salary. That would have brought her up to $17 million. But regardless of the reason, her story did have a happy ending because a year later, the producers decided to give her the raise and more and welcomed her back on for $17.5 million per season until she left in 2016. Talk about the deal. Yes, they said no, and then they brought you back with more than you asked for. Moving on to number 7, we have Chad Michael Murray. He broke out into the spotlight after booking a lead role on the hit TV series One Tree Hill. The show lasted 9 seasons, but Chad's time ended after the 6th. News broke that he would not be returning for the 7th season, and fans had no idea why, nor were we happy about it. Turns out that money was the driving factor, and since everyone's salary was going up the following season, he kind of expected the same. But instead, the network didn't want to give him a raise or any pay at all. He told some of his fans that they fired him to save their studio some money. Video footage leaked of him taking pictures with some fans in North Carolina back in 2009, and a fan asked why he isn't going to be on the show. In the video, he says, "They don't want me. I'm not joking, they're not bringing me back because they want to save money." At number 6 is Lauren Cohen, also known as Maggie from the TV series The Walking Dead. She was a staple character on the show, which is why it shocked fans back in 2018 when they learned that she was in a salary standoff against the network. AMC had to decide if they were going to axe her character or accept her salary negotiations. But her co-star, Kahari Payton, came to her defense and posted a picture of her to his Twitter with the caption that said, "Pay the woman." Maggie said that maybe it was a sign for her to leave since things just weren't lining up in many ways, even outside of the salary raise. Ultimately, they actually let her go, but she was getting offers elsewhere for new roles, so it all worked out in the end. Halfway through at number 5 is Crispin Glover. He's famously known for his role as George McFly in the iconic movie Back to the Future. And if you're a fan, then you've probably wondered why he never returned for the sequels. There's been a few different speculations as to why, and one of them is money. Turns out he had asked for more money. He spoke on it and said, "People say I asked for the same amount of money as Michael J. Fox, which is a total fabrication. I wanted to be in the movie, but the offer was less than half of what Leah Thompson and Tom Wilson, who had similar sized roles. It just wasn't fair." He only got really mad with the studio because they used him in the sequel without his consent. They actually took old prosthetic molds that they had on his face in the first movie and put a new actor into them and then like intersected old footage somehow. Good news is he won the lawsuit for it, so we did get some money from them. Here now at number 4 we have Suzanne Summers. This one goes further back to the 5th season of Three's Company in 1980. It was one of the most popular shows on television at the time, and the actress and her co-star, John Ritter, earned Golden Globe nominations for it. But Suzanne was not happy and asked the ABC executives for a raise. She was making $30,000 an episode at the time, and they offered her an extra $5,000 per episode. But she wanted much more than that. She had a different number in mind. She actually demanded $150,000 an episode. The studio denied her request and basically laughed in her face, and then she refused to film. Like purposely, she would not show up to set on her scheduled days, so she was fired from the show, which makes sense. Taking the number 3 spot is Terrence Howard. The actor earned the highest paycheck on the set of Iron Man. He was said to have earned $4.5 million, which was actually more than Robert Downey Jr., who played the actual hero. But when the sequel came, he was told he was going to get a pay cut because after the success of the first one, they were going to pay Robert more. Rightfully so. Karen says he was set to make $8 million for the second film, but they only offered him $1 million. He was not okay with this and even started to bash Robert and the studio publicly. And that is when he got fired and they hired Don Cheadle instead. Rolling into number 2 is Sean Connery, but many people will still refer to him as James Bond. He's been very open about his feelings about the franchise, saying that he has grown bored with it, but also exposed the financial issues that he had with it. According to Express, he signed on to You Only Live Once for $750,000 plus a 25% share of merchandising, which he was cool with. But when it came to the next Bond film, he declared that he would only return to the franchise if they paid him $1 million plus a percentage of the film's gross. They were not okay with this deal, and instead they hired George Lazenby for $50,000. So they actually saved money this way. That's how you do it, my friends. Showing everyone up at number 1 is Charlie Sheen, which is not shocking. This one is so crazy because he was actually making the most ridiculous amount of money compared to anyone on our list today, yet he still had the audacity to ask for more. He was the highest paid actor on television for his role on 2.5 Men, making approximately $2 million per episode. God forbid that was not enough money. He demanded a pay raise to $3 million an episode in order to continue the series. CBS executives thought that it was ridiculous, duh, and declined his demands. That is when he started to like spiral completely out of control and started bashing Chuck Lorre, the producer. So they just fired him instead. Starting off our list at number 10 is Anne Hathaway. She's known for a variety of her successful movies, but one of them she wasn't known for because she was fired and replaced. You might remember the movie Knocked Up, which came out in 2007 and starred Seth Rogen and Katherine Heigl. Well, it turns out Hathaway was the first one to be hired for the role of Allison in the movie, not long into filming, and became aware of the details of a childbirth scene that was needed to be filmed. She told the director and producers that she wasn't comfortable with the graphic scene and that she thought the depiction of it was disgusting. She got into an argument with the director because she wasn't willing to do it, so she was fired and later replaced with Katherine Heigl, who clearly had no issue filming the disgusting scene. At number 9 we have Ryan Gosling. Hollywood's heartthrob was also dismissed from a set, but not because of an argument. It's no surprise that the actor is praised for his ripped abs and chiseled face, but when he changed his look for a role, it backfired on him. Gosling was hired to play a key role in the movie The Lovely Bones, but later was fired from set. When he first got hired, he weighed about 150 pounds, carrying around his biceps and his six-pack of abs. But Gosling thought that he should be heavier to take on the dad role. He gained 60 pounds and started to grow out his beard. However, while on set, the director Peter Jackson had a very different vision for the part, so he let Gosling go and replaced him with Mark Wahlberg. You would think the director and actor would communicate a little bit better when it comes to the appearance of the character, but apparently not in this case. Not only did Ryan lose the part, but he also packed on the weight for no reason. Taking over the number 8 spot is Natalie Portman. She was first cast to take on the role of Juliet in the 1996 Romeo and Juliet movie. movie. She was supposed to star alongside Leonardo DiCaprio, who was playing Romeo. But after filming began, the filmmakers realized that her young complexion made her look like she was a little girl next to Leo, which technically she was because Leo was 21 years old at the time and she was only 14 years old. Natalie admitted herself in later interviews that the scenes looked inappropriate and screamed child molestation. She was let go from set one day in a civil manner and was later replaced by Claire Danes. In at number 7 is Leah Remini, a well-known actress for her show The King of Queens and her recent movie with J-Lo, Second Act. She's also known for being one of the hosts on The Talk. The hosts seem to come and go on the talk show as headlines have flooded with various people being fired and replaced, while Leah is one of the many who was fired from the job in 2012. Apparently, Sharon Osbourne has power over the other hosts and also producers. The two of them often butt heads and had disagreements while on set with each other. Leah was unexpectedly fired from set one day, which made headlines because the feud went to Twitter. Sharon tweeted out that she had nothing to do with the actress getting fired. In 2015, Leah told Closer that Sharon thought her and her co-host Holly Robinson Peete were ghetto. Coincidentally, Holly was also fired not long after Leah was. In the number 6 spot is Selma Blair, known for her continuous role on the TV show Anger Management, where she co-starred with Charlie Sheen. The actress played Dr. Kate Wales, Charlie's therapist and friend, for 33 episodes over 2 different seasons. The two of them never got close, and she claims he is the reason she was eventually fired from the show. She complained to show management that he, and I quote, was a menace to work with. Deadline Hollywood reported that Sheen admitted to firing her through a text which he labeled her as a C-word. After she complained to the show management, she quickly realized her dismissal was in Sheen's control. His family company, Sheen Productions, helps make the show, so they took her complaints as talking behind the actor's back and criticizing his work. She went on to file a lawsuit against the production company, demanding that they owe her $1.2 million that she would have made on the show if she would have stayed. Halfway through the list at number 5 is Thomas Gibson, known for many of his roles but mainly for playing Aaron Hotchner in CBS series Criminal Minds. The actor had a huge reputation built from being on the show for so many seasons, but ruined it all by one mistake. The actor was fired from set after having an altercation on set with the executive producer Virgil Williams. According to TMZ, Gibson's termination was a long time coming. He was first ordered to attend anger management classes after he punched an assistant director in the face back in 2010. Sources say Gibson was, and I quote, aggressive and verbally abusive for years on the set of Criminal Minds. 6 years later, in 2016, he lashed out and kicked Williams after a heated argument over the script. They sent him home immediately and originally just for a 2-week suspension, but the producers and network decided it was best to terminate him, so they did. And at number 4 we have Columbus Short, an actor who had made it by starring on the hit TV show Scandal. He played Harrison Wright on the series from 2012 to 2014, but was let go because of his drug addiction and trouble with the law. He was arrested for felony battery after a brawl took place at a bar, and also got arrested for a domestic violence incident involving his wife. Not only did the actor have legal issues, he also had troubles quitting his cocaine addiction. When it came to be too much, the show decided to let him go on set one day and killed his character off the show. Back in 2014, Short opened up about his addiction during an interview with Access Hollywood Live. He admitted, I quote, "I'll be candid, I was struggling with drugs. I had a lot on my plate, and you know, I was using unhealthy ways to kind of self-medicate and deal with a lot of heavy-duty stuff in my life." When they asked him what types of drugs he was abusing, his response was, "I was doing cocaine and drinking a lot." He openly apologized to everyone involved with the show and also to all of his fans. Alright guys, at number 3 we have Nicolette Sheridan, known as one of the divas on Desperate Housewives. Although they were all considered to be divas, Nicolette might have been the biggest drama queen of them all. Reports say she constantly clashed with the show creator Mark Cherry, which led to her being dismissed from the show unexpectedly one day. Her character was killed off in April 2009 during one of the episodes, and Nicolette filed a lawsuit against Cherry and Touchstone Television for wrongful termination. She began to air out a bunch of dirty laundry, making claims that Cherry hit her in the head and that ABC fired her in retaliation for reporting the assault. Cherry admitted to touching her, but said it was only a demonstration of how to enact a comedic moment during a scene. The case went to trial, and the director stated that her character's death had been in the show's plan for months. He went on to say that her termination was because of differences and her unprofessional behavior. The trial ended with a mistrial, and the appeals were rejected. The actress was left out of a job and with no compensation. Here at number 2 we have Charlie Sheen. You can't even act like you are surprised to see him on this list. We all heard about how the actor went wild back in 2011, making making jokes that it was tiger blood racing through his veins, which we later found out that it was cocaine. The actor began feuding with the creator of the TV show 2.5 Men, Chuck Lorre. Sheen took it to social media and began attacking him through tweets and nasty interviews by calling him a maggot and other derogatory terms. Sheen said in an interview that he was showing up to work the following Monday no matter what. Well, that didn't last long, because Lorre immediately fired the actor and stopped production for the remainder of the season. The 9th season continued on without him, with Ashton Kutcher taking the lead instead. Taking our number 1 spot is Mama June, known as the mom on TLC's show Here Comes Honey Boo Boo. Let me just start off by saying, although she stars on her own TV show, she is not considered a talented actor in my opinion. It still shocks me that somehow she even got her own show in the first place. But in October 2014, news broke that she was dating a 53-year-old registered sex offender who allegedly molested her daughter. Her oldest daughter came forward as a victim of the molestation, but Mama June refused to give up her boyfriend Mark McDaniel. TLC stepped up and let her go on a day of scheduled filming and told her they would be canceling the entire show. She went on to start a weight loss journey, which landed her another show on WeTV called Mama June From Not to Hot. The show documented her life for 3 seasons, which showed her weight loss surgery and 300-pound weight loss. However, on March 13th of this year, she was arrested at a gas station in Alabama for drug possession. There are no further updates yet, but she may be fired from her second show. Starting off our list at number 10 is Robert Downey Jr. Who would have thought our beloved Iron Man could ever do something that would get him fired from a set? Well, luckily he was never fired from Marvel, but don't think this actor has a clean record. Turns out the actor was a mess before he became Iron Man and was even fired from set on the TV series called Ally McBeal. The series ran from 1997 to 2002, and Downey Jr. was struggling with a drug addiction. During the timeline, he found himself in mugshots and courtrooms on multiple occasions. It wasn't until 2001 when he was arrested once again for a suspicion of being under the influence of illegal substances. It was this arrest that had him kicked off the show. He was let go immediately and written off the show with no future plans to bring back his character. The producer of the show, David E. Kelly, made a statement following the arrest and said the season would wrap without Downey Jr. in it. The producer refused to give a reason for the actor's sudden departure, but Downey later opened up about it with the truth. Since then, it is clear the actor got his act and his career back together, and we are sure happy that he did. Imagine a life without Iron Man. It's just too painful. At number 9 is Chloe Moretz. The actress has a very successful acting career, but one of her roles was swiped from someone who was just a little bit more famous than her. Back in 2008, Chloe was finishing up her work for the voice of Penny in the animated movie Bolt. Turns out, near the end of completion, she was suddenly let go. Production went as far as erasing all of her pre-recorded work, and her role was given to Miley Cyrus instead. Reports say that Miley was coming out of her Hannah Montana fame at the time, and they thought she'd be a bigger hit for the movie. However, Chloe was later offered the role of voicing the young Penny voice, which she agreed to do. The actress claims to have no hard feelings towards Miley and doesn't like discussing it. So, after all of her hard work, she was fired, replaced, and then rehired, but for a smaller role? That girl is way more understanding than I would have been. Taking over the number 8 spot is Danny Masterson. Have you ever wondered what happened to Hyde from the TV series That 70s Show? Well, he was played by the actor Danny Masterson, who has found himself in quite the ordeal since we saw him on the show. For years, the actor has been facing allegations of sexual misconduct, one being as severe as violent rape. However, the actor is known to be a Scientologist, and people debated that he was protected by the church through these allegations. However, the Me Too movement is what helped bring his allegations to the public eye. During the time that it was made public, Masterson was starring on the Netflix series The Ranch, alongside his That 70s Show co-star Ashton Kutcher. It took some time, but in 2017 the actor was fired from set and Netflix announced that he had been let go. The actor won't comment on the show, but continues to deny all these allegations. In our number 7 spot is Cheryl Cole. The actress, singer, TV personality, whatever mask she wants to wear, became famous across the board for being a judge on the UK show of X Factor. Depending on who you ask, you might be told that English accents are one of the sexiest accents to have on men and women. Apparently, the people behind the X Factor don't agree when when it comes to Cheryl Cole. Reports say that she was promised a new gig on the American version of the hit British TV show. In 2011, she was asked by Simon Cowell, a Brit himself, to join the judging panel on the American X Factor. However, 2 weeks into filming, she was let go from the show. Reports say she was X'd via text message while on set one day by the one and only Simon Cowell himself. The reasoning behind it apparently was that he and producers were worried that the US audience wouldn't be able to understand her accent. Fans aren't really buying that reasoning, seeing as she was British when they first hired her. At number 6 is Stuart Townsend, the Irish actor who is known for his roles on Law & Order, Salem, Betrayal, and Will and Grace. There's one role he isn't known for though, and that's because he was fired before it ever came out. The actor was cast as Aragorn in the Lord of the Rings trilogy, but was later fired by the director Peter Jackson. Townsend told Entertainment Weekly, "I was there rehearsing and training for 2 months, then was fired the day before filming began." He went on to explain that he was having issues with some of the people involved during his time of rehearsing on set. He said that they wouldn't pay him for his time because he was in breach of contract due to not having worked long enough. Stewart says he was almost relieved to be leaving since he was having some issues, but that was until they said he wouldn't be paid for his 2 months of work. The role ended up being given to Viggo Mortensen instead, and when Townsend was asked about what he thought, his response was, and I quote, "I have no good feelings for those people in charge, I really don't. The director wanted me and then apparently thought better of it because he really wanted someone 20 years older than me and completely different. I don't blame him for having such hard feelings, I would be just as off." Halfway through our list at number 5 is Shannon Doherty. The actress managed to get fired from 2 different TV shows, Beverly Hills 90210 and Charmed. Reports say the actress was fired from Charmed after an ongoing feud with co-star Alyssa Milano. According to the Huffington Post, Shannon told Entertainment Tonight, and I quote, "There was too much drama on set and not enough passion for the work." Well, she continued with feuds with Beverly Hills 90210, which ended up having her fired once again for getting into an altercation on set. Her co-star Tori Spelling opened up in 2015 about what really happened, since she is actually the one who technically got her fired. Turns out Shannon and her other co-star Jenny Garth were always at each other's throats, and with Shannon's past of not being so easy to work with, it's really no surprise. It came to a breaking point on set one day when the crew had to physically pull the 2 girls apart because they were in a physical altercation. Tori Spelling went to her dad, who was the producer of the show, and had Shannon fired immediately. Tori said it wasn't easy having her friend fired, but that she still stands by her decision and said it was for the best. At number 4 is Erin Hayes. The actress was starring on the TV series Kevin Can Wait, with Kevin James playing her husband. She played the comedian's wife for 2 years, which is why the audience was so shocked when her character had suddenly died on the show and the actress was let go. Erin was suddenly fired from the show without any explanation, she told reporters. According to James himself, he said the show needed to kill her character off the show in order for it to drive forward. Erin said she was hurt by the whole thing and began liking tweets from fans who said they were boycotting the show following her departure. To make matters even worse, they added someone in her place, not to be his wife but to be a series regular role. Kevin James brought back his former TV wife Leah Remini, who starred with him on King of Queens. Fans have gone on to say that the show is more of a King of Queens reboot than anything, but anything for ratings, right? Alright guys, at number 3 we have Eric Stoltz. The actor was the first one to be cast as Marty McFly in the legendary Back to the Future. Michael J. Fox is the actor attached to that name, but that's only because he replaced Eric during the filming process. Only a few weeks into filming, the director Robert Zemeckis and the writer Bob Gale realized that Eric wasn't the right fit for the part. They said he was a fine dramatic actor, but he wasn't bringing the certain energy that they were looking for. Eric is a theater-trained actor, but still has a very successful career in the film industry. Apparently, it just wasn't the right fit for this part. One day he was fired unexpectedly, and they immediately brought in Michael J. Fox to fill in. All the scenes he had already filmed were shot again with Michael in his place. Here we are at number 2 with Suzanne Summers. The actress has been around for decades with a very successful career, but her prime time was during 1977 to 1981 when she was starring on the hit TV series Three's Company. She won a People's Choice Award for Favorite Female Performer and also earned a Golden Globe nomination for Best TV Actress. She was a household name and was making countless TV appearances. However, in 2015, a story made headlines sharing the real reason that Suzanne left the show all those years ago. Turns out she was fired. In 1980, her career came to a halt when she asked ABC for a salary raise to match her co-star John Ritter. They were heading into their 5th season negotiations, and she asked for her pay to hike from $30,000 an episode to $150,000, according to The Hollywood Reporter. Not only that, but she also wanted 10% of the show's profits. Instead, ABC offered her a $5,000 salary increase. As a result of the negotiations, Suzanne began to boycott the 3rd and 4th shows of the new season, using excuses like old back injuries and such. Classic. ABC decreased her role to 60 seconds per episode, and she filmed separately from the rest of the cast. Eventually, they just terminated her contract out of the blue, and she was replaced with Jenna Lee Harrison. Taking the number 1 spot is Clayne Crawford, who caused a lot of controversy when he was fired from his role on Lethal Weapon. The actor was labeled as an emotional terrorist by fans who made up posters and posted them around LA. During his time on the show, he was always under the spotlight for his on-set behavior, mainly for his tension with co-star Damon Wayans. Enough was enough, and in 2018, Clayne was fired from the show. Fox announced his dismissal, and his recasting was in the public eye for weeks. Once they announced the show was renewed for season 3 and that Sean William Scott would be taking over his role, Damon went to social media to share his side of the story. He ended up posting a graphic video and image of him shooting a scene which Clayne was actually directing. The video shows him being hit in the head by shrapnel from a special effects explosion. The kicker about it was that the explosion happened on the opposite side where he was actually hit on his head. The actor believes it was planned especially because he never received an apology from Clayne or an explanation for it, but he was left with a bloody gouge mark on his head instead. Clayne never spoke publicly on what really happened, he just posted a dramatic goodbye picture on his Instagram page. Beginning our countdown at number 10 is Lisa Kudrow. Most people will know her for her legendary performance as Phoebe Buffay on Friends, but before that she auditioned for the role of Roz Doyle on Frasier. The character Roz was Frasier's producer and friend who had a strong-willed personality. One thing we love about Lisa is her quirkiness, but it did not fit well with what the director had in mind for that role. However, they didn't know this until they actually hired her and started doing read-throughs with the other cast members. The production team felt something was off and ended up rewriting the lines that were meant to be serious into something hilarious, and it was just a totally different direction than what they wanted, so they decided to fire Lisa and replace her with someone new, someone way less quirky. Like, imagine being fired for just having like this really fun personality. Moving over to number 9, we got Ryan Gosling. It's hard to believe that a Hollywood heartthrob like him would get dismissed from a movie set. But it didn't happen because of some big argument went down or anything, it just had to do with his weight. The actor is often praised for his chiseled jawline and ripped abs, but he decided to change his look for the movie and it backfired on him. When he was first hired to play a key role in The Lovely Bones, he weighed around 150 pounds. But he thought that since he was taking on a dad role, he should gain some weight. He gained 60 pounds and started to grow at his beard as well. But when he got to set to start filming, the director, Peter Jackson, had a different vision for the part, so he ended up firing him and replaced him with Mark Wahlberg. I personally don't understand how this happened. Like, wouldn't the actor and director communicate about the vision they had for the character? I don't really understand it. However, I guess Ryan gained weight and grew his beard for nothing. I would be pretty pissed if I gained 60 pounds just to lose a job. Swiping the number 8 spot is Rebel Wilson. The Pitch Perfect actress took legal action after she was fired from a major role in Kung Fu Panda 3 and a role in the movie Trolls. An Australian magazine published articles about her that she said was defamation and caused her to lose the roles. Apparently, the producers told her that she had become divisive and DreamWorks deemed her unsuitable for animated films that are aimed for a child audience. It is common that a studio will look at the performer's public image because ultimately it can be a reflection on theirs. During the time of the legal case, DreamWorks didn't have any comments on it. And good news is, Rebel has been able to hold down a pretty solid acting career without those jobs. In spot number 7 is Damon Wayans. The actor and comedian came from a family of hilarious siblings who all made their mark in Hollywood. But in the 1980s, he was a struggling comedian and ended up taking a job at Saturday Night Live. They gave him a few lines, but he was aiming to be in the spotlight and wanted to be a standout performer. The creator of the show, Lorne Michaels, wouldn't give him the freedom that he wanted because he saw things differently. So during one of the sketches that was supposed to be between a straight man and a cop, Damon improvised unexpectedly and played a flamboyant gay man instead. He thought it would make the sketch more entertaining, but Lorne was not pleased and fired him after the episode. Rolling into number 6 is Leah Remini. The well-known actress made a name for herself on the TV series The King of Queens, but her career went into more areas than just acting. She also was a host on The Talk. Throughout the years, people have seen different hosts come and go on the show with different stories and headlines about why they were replaced. One of these headlines came in 2012 when Leah was one of the people who got fired. Apparently, the person to blame is Sharon Osbourne, who allegedly holds the power over the other hosts on the show. Leah said the two of them often butt heads on the show and that Sharon was just not a fan of hers. The feud between them ended up going to Twitter, and Sharon wanted to clear her name and tweeted out that she had nothing to do with her getting fired. Later in 2015, Leah told Closer that Sharon thought her and her co-host Holly Robinson Pete were ghetto. I quote. Coincidentally, Holly was also fired not long after Leah was. So is that a coincidence? I think not. Halfway through number 5 is Jamie Wylett. The child star rose to fame with his role as Vincent Crabbe in the iconic Harry Potter movie series. He appeared in the first 6 movies and played the friend of Draco Malfoy, who was a fan favorite. But then out of nowhere, he was missing from Deathly Hallows, and it didn't take long for people to notice and question why he was just no longer in the storyline. But in 2009, the news broke that he had been arrested for cannabis possession charges, so he was fired from the franchise. Obviously, during that time, it was not legal, so the arrest weighed a lot heavier on his record and career. It turns out he had 10 plants growing in his home, and it wasn't his last arrest either. He was actually later arrested and put in jail during the 2012 London riots. We're moving on to number 4, and we got Erin Hayes. The actress was starring on the TV series Kevin Can Wait, with Kevin James playing her husband. She played the comedian's wife for 2 years, which is why the audience was so shocked when her character had suddenly just died on the show and the actress was let go from the series. Like, can you just do that? You can just kill someone's wife off the show for no reason? The actress told reporters that she was fired from the show without any explanation. According to James himself, he said the show needed to kill her character off the show in order for it to drive forward. Erin said she was hurt by the whole thing and began liking tweets from fans who said that they were gonna boycott the show following her departure. To make matters worse, they added someone in her place, not to be his wife, but to play a lead female in the series. Kevin James brought back his former TV wife, Leah Remini, who starred with him on King of Queens. What a coincidence. Cruising into number 3 is Sylvester Stallone. The actor learned the hard way back in 1984 when he was fired from the action comedy movie Beverly Hills Cop. You may not have even known that he was involved in the project because if you watch the movie, it was actually Eddie Murphy as the lead. Turns out that he was the replacement for Stallone, who was fired because he wanted to change the script. Apparently, he had some issues with the original script, saying that there was just too much comedy and not enough action. So he took matters into his own hands and actually rewrote the script to better fit his vision, but nobody wanted it and they let him go instead. Fun fact though, he says he actually used some of the ideas from his rewrite to make his 1986 film Cobra. And both movies made a lot of money, so really, it was kind of a win-win for everyone. Earning number 2 on our list is Robert Downey Jr. The world adores him for taking on the iconic hero role of Iron Man, but he hasn't always had a clean record. Turns out he was once really struggling in his personal life to a point where he was fired from the set of the TV series Ally McBeal. The series ran from 1997 to 2002, and during that time, the actor was struggling with a severe drug addiction. During that timeline, he found himself in mugshots in courtrooms on multiple occasions. It wasn't until 2001 when he was arrested once again for suspicion of being under the influence of illegal substances. It was this arrest that had him kicked off the show. He was let go immediately and written off the show with no further plans to bring his character back. The producer of the show, David E. Kelley, made a statement following the arrests and said that the season would wrap without Downey Jr. in it. The producer at the time refused to give a reason for the actor's sudden departure, but Downey later opened up about it with the truth. We made it to number 1, and we have the one and only Judy Garland. She's a legendary actress who holds the name of the original Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz. She was shining in the mid-20th century Hollywood image, but then became hooked on drugs, and her personal and professional life started to spiral out of control. Over the following years after Oz, it was reported that she was fired from various MGM studio projects. Claims say that she would show up late on set or just not show up at all, so they would release her from her contract. Unfortunately, her story does not have a happy ending. She was never able to overcome her addictions, and she actually died from an overdose at the age of 47.
Starting off with a recent major celebrity scandal, what Diddy did. He wasn't very nice, and he is now paying the price. Since all the people he hurt have come forward, his career has greatly suffered. Capital Prep Harlem, a tuition-free school Diddy co-founded, cut ties with him in November of last year. Then Diddy stepped down as chairman of the Revolt TV, and TMZ reports that he has sold off all his shares of that company. The Hulu series Diddy and his family were supposed to get was scrapped. Peloton stopped using his music for classes. 18 brands left Diddy's online marketplace, Empower Global, and Diddy's glasses line was pulled from stores. And that was also probably the first time many people found out he even had a glasses line. Point is, Diddy is finally getting what's coming to him. Colleen Ballinger managed to destroy her career in the time it would take someone to perform a self-written song on the ukulele. I know that's a really specific measure of time, but that was what she actually did. Ballinger was a very popular YouTuber from about 2010 to 2023. She also had a Netflix special, and her YouTube was mainly known for posting videos using the character Miranda Sings, a satire of bad singers with big egos, and I hope the irony is not lost here. The character was incredibly popular and her career took off. Her audience was mainly younger, and she did not always behave well with these younger fans. As early as 2020, allegations were coming out about Colleen creating inappropriate relationship with her fans, but everything really came crashing down in 2023. More allegations were coming out, screenshots were being shared, and pretty soon Colleen's live gigs and guest appearances were being cancelled left and right. Colleen decided the best way to address this very serious situation was to defend herself on the most unserious instrument, the ukulele. Why did she choose to sing? I'm so glad you asked. She revealed that she was advised by her team to not speak on the issue, but they didn't say she couldn't sing. The video wasn't received well, of course. A few months later, she posted a speaking apology for the song, but people were pretty much done with her at that point. Her audience has since shrunk and her career likely won't recover. Ariana Grande suspiciously dropped out of performing a concert just a few days before. She said it was for medical reasons, but at the time she was being investigated by police, so many wonder if she was actually telling the truth. I am of course referring to Donutgate. For anyone who is confused out of their mind, Donutgate refers to a 2015 incident where Ariana Grande was caught saying, "I hate America," before licking donuts off a tray and putting them back. The cashier working at the donut shop confirmed that Ariana did not buy anything she licked and was a bit rude. This is 100% real, and Ariana Grande was investigated by Riverside County public health officials and Lake Elsinore police. She was nearly cancelled for this. She had to issue 2 separate apologies. It was serious. She was set to perform at the free concert for the Major League Baseball All-Star game that year, but pulled out a few days before. Reps said it was because she got her wisdom teeth out, but many people were skeptical because the Donutgate controversy was such a big deal. Ariana's defense for her actions was just as bizarre as the action itself. She first clarified that she is a proud American, and then went on to talk about how she is an advocate for eating well and how she is upset that sometimes Americans will consume things without thought to the consequences of their health. She also claimed she was frustrated with the high obesity rate in the US. I guess her licking the icing off donuts she didn't pay for is her way of helping out. Completely bizarre situation, but also deeply hilarious. The biggest pop culture scandal of the next year, 2016, has got to be the Taylor Swift, Kanye West, Kim K leaked phone call. Quick recap: Kanye releases the song Famous, says some questionable things about Taylor Swift after the pair has just rekindled a friendship after feuding for years. Taylor said she never approved being called the B word. Kim releases a private phone call between Kanye and Taylor that was edited to make it seem like Taylor was lying, and then everyone turned on Taylor. Taylor's comment sections were flooded with snake emojis, and she was bullied online to the point where she felt she couldn't show her face in public for almost
almost a year. It wasn't until much later that it came out Taylor was actually telling the truth the whole time. Still, that year where Taylor felt she had to disappear likely led to the star missing out on lots of opportunities. It happened right as she was hitting her career peak for that time, since it was right around the massive success that was 1989. Some Swifties even claim an album was supposed to be released that year and couldn't be due to the scandal. Though it was a rough period for the singer, it resulted later in a fan favorite album and era, Reputation. So there was something good that came out of all that pain, and now of course Taylor is totally fine and flying around the world for her successful Eras tour. Miley is now back in the game and winning Grammys, but she once lost out on a Vogue cover due to a scandalous VMAs performance. The Hannah Montana star made such a major shift in image, a shift that was much more mature and over the top than anything anyone had seen from her, and that change came with some wild actions on her part. Miley's performance at the 2013 MTV Video Music Awards with Robin Thicke was unforgettable and many said inappropriate. Miley performed with a nude set on, so if you weren't looking at her very closely, you might think she was unclothed, but that wasn't the thing that people had the biggest issue with during the performance. The big controversy was what Miley did with the foam finger she was performing with. The star made movements with it that are usually not supposed to happen on live TV. The inventor of an early version of the foam finger weighed in, saying Cyrus took an honorable icon that is seen in sporting venues everywhere and degraded it. It took a while after the incident for Cyrus's career to recover. At the time, she was reported to have been fired from her upcoming Vogue cover shoot. Years later, she is back on top of the world and winning Grammys though. The downfall of Ellen will go down in daytime talk show history. Who could have guessed? Actually, no, that's not the truth. Ellen would cause so much trouble. Dakota Johnson visited the Ellen set that day for what was supposed to be a routine interview, but left setting Ellen's career on fire. In the interview, the conversation between Johnson and Ellen DeGeneres shifts to Johnson's recent birthday party. Ellen is getting on her case for not receiving an invitation, only that wasn't true. Dakota was quick to point out that Ellen was in fact invited and that she even made a point to invite Ellen. It was awkward, but the conversation eventually shifted. However, after this moment, people started looking at Ellen with a magnifying glass. They started noticing how she would subtly insult guests, make guests uncomfortable to the point of crying, and scare guests that expressed they did not want to be scared. Then stories from people that worked on the Ellen show started coming out. People were claiming that the talk show host was not as kind as she claimed to be. Pretty soon, Ellen lost all public favor, her show was cancelled, and she hasn't made any major appearances since. Kanye West's fall from grace has been years in the making. While West has created some truly incredible music, his actions outside the studio are less than admirable. Between his comments about Taylor Swift to his controversial famous music video, statements he has made about history, his failed presidential campaign, and more, it's not hard to see why he is no longer receiving many opportunities in the spotlight. He is still releasing music, of course, but even that isn't going super well. It wasn't allowed to be released on Apple Music due to some legal troubles. He put his album on there anyway, and it was actually pulled down shortly after. Throughout the past few years, Kanye's behavior has led to major brands like Adidas, Balenciaga, United Talent Agency, and more to part ways with the performer. The scandal that came after Janet Jackson and Justin Timberlake's Super Bowl performance left Janet Jackson's career in shambles, while Timberlake walked away with barely a scratch. During their halftime performance, Janet was supposed to do a big costume reveal. All Timberlake had to do was rip off a piece of her shirt to reveal a bralette. However, he accidentally ripped off everything, and Jackson's bare chest was exposed to the thousands of fans in the stadium and millions watching at home. The scandal after was worse than the actual event. Jackson took all the heat for the mistake, and Justin managed to pretty much walk free. Janet Jackson later went on to tell the public what was supposed to happen, that her goal wasn't to expose herself to all of America, but lots of people just didn't believe her. Jackson's music was blacklisted from radio stations, her career took a major hit, and has never fully recovered. She told USA Today that the situation was truly embarrassing. People are still divided about whether or not this whole thing was planned or not years later. One major Hollywood producer is now being held accountable for his actions singer Courtney Love was warning us about years ago. Love hit the red carpet in 2005 and joined Comedy Central for an interview. The interviewer asked the singer, "Do you have any advice for a young girl moving to Hollywood?" Love seemed unsure on how to respond at first, but then chose to become one of the first people to warn us about the major producer. She responded, I'll get libeled if I say it. If major producer invites you to a party in the Four Seasons, reasons, don't go. Of course, it would be many years later that said man would be held accountable for what happened at those parties, and people to this day look back on this interview wondering how he didn't take Love's warning seriously. Love at the time was treated very poorly after this moment. She claims she was banned from the creative arts agency and lost out on many jobs. In the present day, she has received a lot of love since all the accusations have come out, and is regarded as one of the first people that attempted to expose the disgusting behavior. The college admissions scandal was and still is huge and messy. Lori Loughlin was one of the celebrities caught in the middle of it all, since she allegedly used financial means to ensure her daughter would have a spot at the University of Southern California. This all happened 5 years ago, and it feels like it was yesterday. Lori and her husband allegedly spent about $500,000 to guarantee her daughter's spot. Loughlin is known for frequently appearing in media produced by Crown Media, the parent company of Hallmark. And I do mean frequently. She was a staple actress for them. Her most popular role being on the drama series When Calls the Heart. As a When Calls the Heart fan, this situation was devastating. Not only was Lori dropped from all projects affiliated with the company, her and her husband ended up pleading guilty in 2020 and headed to jail.
Undeniably, Hollywood icon Mel Gibson has faced significant public relations challenges since his 2006 arrest for an alleged DUI. Gibson was reportedly recorded making anti-Semitic remarks during his arrest in Malibu, California, leading to widespread criticism. In response to the controversy, Gibson sought rehabilitation and expressed deep remorse for his actions. But despite these efforts, many speculated his career was irreparably damaged. His reputation suffered another blow in 2010 when he was allegedly recorded using racist language by his then partner, Oksana Grigorieva. Following the leak, Gibson faced condemnation from civil rights and anti-domestic violence organizations. However, rumors of a career resurgence began to circulate. In 2017, Gibson reappeared at the Oscars as a nominee for Best Director. Even though his name was initially omitted from the Hacksaw Ridge movie poster, later the Hollywood Reporter revealed Gibson's plans to co-write and direct a remake of The Wild Bunch and a sequel to Passion of the Christ in 2020. Despite these controversies surrounding Gibson, there is no denying his talent and success in the film industry. As an actor, director, and producer, he's played a significant role in some of cinema's most iconic films such as Braveheart, Lethal Weapon, and Mad Max. On to the next! In 2007, a notorious video emerged featuring former Baywatch actor David Hasselhoff indulging in a cheeseburger, seemingly under the influence. Hasselhoff admitted to being a recovering alcoholic in a statement and explained, as quoted by The Hollywood Reporter, that the video was recorded by his daughters as a wake-up call. Although the incident haunted Hasselhoff for years, he chose to see the lighter side of it. In a conversation with Inside Edition, he stated that his daughters found humor in the situation. In 2015, Hasselhoff decided to poke fun at the incident in his mockumentary show Hoff the Record. His subsequent works include the 2016 film Baywatch, along with The Rock, and online show named Being David Hasselhoff. Despite his successful career and popularity, David faced a major career setback when he was fired from the popular reality show America's Got Talent. Hasselhoff, who had been a judge on the show since its inception in 2006, was reportedly let go due to concerns about his erratic behavior, possibly fueled by his publicly acknowledged struggles with alcoholism. The news of his departure was initially met with surprise and disappointment by fans, who had come to appreciate his unique humor and candid critiques on the show. Next up, in the midst of the 2016 US presidential race, a shocking audio recording came to light, capturing a private conversation between then-candidate Donald Trump and TV host Billy Bush from the program Access Hollywood. On the recording, Trump controversially declared, "When you're a star, you can do anything," to which Bush seemingly concurred, responding, "Whatever you want." Trump's vulgar comments continued, including an explicit phrase about women, which was met with laughter, and tasteless remarks about women's legs by Bush. Despite the scandal, Trump went on to win the presidency, dismissing his words as mere locker room talk. Conversely, Bush faced immediate repercussions, losing his position on the Today Show. In a piece for the New York Times, Bush admitted that he didn't take Trump's words seriously at the time, perceiving them as an off-color jest. He wrote he was performing, surely he thought. None of this was real, now we know better. Bush withdrew from public view for 3 years, sharing with People magazine how he felt completely apart and struggled with resentment and anger. However, he eventually returned to the public eye in 2019, speaking candidly about his mistakes and the lessons he learned from the experience. He admitted that he should have taken a stand and condemned Trump's behavior rather than simply going along with it. That incident sparked a larger conversation about toxic masculinity and misogyny in our society. It highlighted the prevalence of locker room talk and the normalization of objectifying objectifying women. It also shed light on the unequal treatment of men and women in similar situations. While Trump faced little consequence, Bush's career was severely impacted. Now we're diving into a major controversy that rocked the world of basketball. Remember Donald Sterling, the previous owner of LA Clippers? Well, in 2014, he made some comments that cost him a lot. A tape was leaked, allegedly recorded by V. Stiviano, his rumored girlfriend, where Sterling reportedly instructed her to refrain from posting pictures with people of color on Instagram. He was quoted saying, "You can sleep with black men, bring them in, do whatever you want. All I ask is you don't promote it and don't bring them to my games." I mean, as we can all, I'm sure, assume, this led to a wave of backlash, with his team members protesting by wearing their warm-up tees out inside out, effectively hiding the team's logo. The Clippers lost numerous sponsorships, and Sterling faced strong criticism from several notable figures in the African American community, including President Barack Obama. Obama remarked, "When ignorant folks want to advertise their ignorance, you don't really have to do anything, just let them talk." That's what happened here. He expressed his faith in NBA Commissioner Adam Silver that he would handle that situation. The fallout from Sterling's comments was immense. He was forced to sell the LA Clippers for $2 billion, endured a fine of $2.5 million, and was banned for life from the NBA. As of 2017, Sterling and his wife were trying to reverse the ban. In 2016, Michael Richards, also recognized as Kramer from the hit TV show Seinfeld, was performing at the Laugh Factory when he was heckled by an audience member who happened to be of African American descent. What transpired next shocked everyone present. According to TMZ, Richards lost his cool, responding with a racially charged outburst that lasted 3 minutes, in which he shouted, "Throw him out. Look, there's a..." Richards later made a public apology on The Late Show with David Letterman, expressing remorse for his uncontrolled outburst on stage and assuring everyone he was not a racist. Sounds like something a racist would say. The incident had a significant impact on Richards, who has since then kept a low profile, reflecting on the incident years later on Jerry Seinfeld's Comedians in Cars with Coffee. Richards expressed regret over his behavior, acknowledging that he should have stayed focused on entertaining the audience rather than lashing out in anger. He admitted, "I think I worked selfishly and not selflessly. It's not about me, it's about the audience. Now that's a lesson I learned 7 years ago when I blew it in the comedy club and lost my temper." In the years following the incident, Richards has largely stayed out of the public eye, as he should. Next up, Transformers star Shia LaBeouf is no stranger to encounters with the law, but one incident in particular came at an extraordinary cost. LaBeouf's 2017 arrest in Savannah, Georgia for disorderly conduct and public intoxication brought him significant attention when a video of him hurling abuses at a police officer went viral. This resulted in a court-ordered 10-week rehab stint. The following year, in an interview with Esquire, he revealed that a series of arrests, erratic public behavior, and personal issues related to PTSD had left him marginalized in Hollywood. He said, "I'm run out. No one's giving me a shot right now." Despite these setbacks, LaBeouf remained steadfast in his determination to revive his career. His co-star from The Peanut Butter Falcon, Zachary Goetz-Sagan, was instrumental in this journey. LaBeouf recounts a conversation where Zachary, who has Down syndrome, told him, "You're already famous, this is my chance and you're ruining it." Reflecting on this, LaBeouf admitted, "To hear him say that he was disappointed in me probably changed the course of my life." He praised Goetz-Sagan's honesty, saying, "Zach can't not shoot straight and bless him for it, cause in that moment I needed a straight shooter who I couldn't argue with." LaBeouf's performance in The Peanut Butter Falcon received critical acclaim, with critics labeling it as his comeback role. Next, the golfing legend Tiger Woods found himself in the spotlight back in 2009, and not for his golf prowess, but for a scandal involving his marital life. It was reported that Ellen Nordegren, Woods' wife at the time, chased him out of their home with a golf club upon discovering his infidelity. In a leaked voicemail that emerged shortly after, Woods could be heard pleading with the woman, as reported by the New York Post, to remove her name from her phone. This was seemingly an attempt to prevent Nordegren from contacting her. Following the scandal, Woods confessed to having extramarital affairs with roughly 120 women. The fallout was immense, leading to a divorce from Nordegren, a drastic decline in his golf performance, and the loss of significant endorsements, among them Nike. Woods later sought treatment for sex addiction. 10 years would pass before Woods would clinch another major championship, winning the Masters in 2019. Tiger Woods is widely recognized as one of the greatest golfers in history, with numerous major championship wins under his belt. However, his reputation took a hit with that infidelity news. The scandal rocked the sports world and brought attention to the issue of extramarital affairs among athletes. In 1998, a huge controversy swept the nation when Monica Lewinsky, former White House intern, found herself at the heart of a scandal. Her ex-friend Linda Tripp had secretly recorded their private calls and handed these tapes over to the FBI. These recordings suggested that Lewinsky had been involved in an affair with the then President Bill Clinton, sparking a media storm that left a lasting impact on Lewinsky's career, but obviously not Clinton's. Christian Bale, the renowned actor, found himself in a precarious situation during the filming of Terminator Salvation. A leaked recording captured him in a heated argument with the film's director of photography, who had unintentionally intruded on a scene. Bale, lost in a tirade of expletives, demanded the DP to be dismissed from the set. Following the leak, the actor issued a public apology on LA's K-Rock radio station, admitting his behavior was unjustifiable and acknowledging that he had behaved poorly. Bale explained that his outburst resulted from being deeply committed to his character, having blurred the lines between reality and fiction. However, his sister expressed concern about his behavior, referencing a previous incident where he had a similar outburst in front of her family. While Bale continues to feature in critically acclaimed films, such incidents have raised eyebrows and led to speculation about his future in the industry. Okay, in an episode of her podcast, Broad Ideas, Rachel shares a deeply personal story about a recent professional setback she faced. She opens up about a peculiar circumstance where her candid conversation about her private life, specifically aspects of her sex life, led to an unexpected job loss. Surprisingly, this open and honest dialogue about sex resulted in her losing a job she had already secured. She described that as the first time she encountered such a situation in her professional career. And that wraps up our countdown of the top 10 leaked videos that got celebrities fired. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button, share with your friends, and subscribe to our channel for more intriguing content. Remember, we're all human and prone to mistakes, but it's how we bounce back that truly defines us.
Number 10, Lindsay Lohan. In the early 2000s, Lindsay Lohan faced a ton of public scandals, but one that's not talked about often enough actually took place behind the scenes of a little show called Ugly Betty. Lohan was a guest star on the show in the 3rd season playing Kimmy Keegan. Kimmy was supposed to stick around for 6 total episodes, but that number was shrunken down to just 4. The reason being was her co-star and, the lead of the show, America Ferrera, just didn't get along with Lindsay on set. According to America and several of the Ugly Betty crew members, Lindsay would just show up with an entourage of people, usually under the influence of herbs and spices, and the production crew had to repaint her dressing room when she left because it was just so messed up. One crew member alleged that she would cut images of her own face out of magazines and tabloid articles as if she were making a collage of some kind. America claims that one scene took over 30 takes to get right because they just kept flubbing their lines. Lindsay's team of buddies have been adamant that America had too much power and was the sole reason that she was asked to leave the show. Unfortunately, if you do bad things, and enough people know about it, karma comes around. Number 9, Julianne Moore. Creative differences, the phrase that has been behind some of the most tragic Hollywood stories in films that could have been, and in this case, roles. For an industry centered around creativity, the movie industry can be awfully risk-averse, especially when it comes to the decision of casting a lead. Now, it's not uncommon for actors to suddenly be thrust out of productions in lieu of a new face, or in some cases, the original choice that you were replacing. A good example of doing it yourself, though, is Julianne Moore. The actor from films like the 2013 reboot of Carrie and the action flick Kingsman: Golden Circle was set to play the leading lady in the critically acclaimed dramedy Can You Ever Forgive Me? And she was casted as the character Lee Israel, a writer who falls out of step with current culture and decides to embellish her writing, basically inventing the concept of fake news. Julianne began filming her scenes, but was asked to leave the production only 1 month into filming. According to the director Nicole Hollifner, portrayal of her character just wasn't what she had in mind while writing. Julianne played the role with too much of herself influencing the overall appeal. When directed to try to play the role another way, Julianne continued to give a similar performance, and she was ultimately replaced by Melissa McCarthy, better known for her more comedic roles in movies like The Heat and Bridesmaids, but her turn as Lee is considered to be one of her greatest acting achievements of all time, even landing her a nomination for Best Actress at the 2019 Oscar ceremony. Julianne didn't take the news all that well, but did eventually move on and has made a couple of solid flicks since, so it all worked out in the end for everybody. Number 8, Henry Winkler. Henry Winkler is best known for his role as the Fonz on Happy Days, and he was set to direct Tom Hanks in the much-loved buddy cop movie Turner and Hooch. Unfortunately, these two had a pretty rough history together before that. The Fonz had actually fought with Hanks in character on the set of Happy Days for an episode a few years before, and it would appear that Tom wishes that he could fight Henry for real. As rumor has it, the two of them just didn't get along at all, so much so that a few days into filming Turner and Hooch, with Henry behind the wheel, Tom ordered Winkler to be removed from the set and replaced as director. That's the kind of power Tom Hanks wields. He can just walk on set and be like, no. Not only did Tom complain that Henry's behavior as director was annoying, he complained that Henry was just overall bad at his job. It would take double the average time to reset a shot on set, he had minimal control over his actors, and he was apparently very frustrated with having a dog on the set. Like, did he even read the script before he took the job? That dog is a national treasure. What makes this firing even more tragic is the fact that when Winkler was delivered the news, one of the film's producers ripped Henry's contract up in front of his face. Over the years, when asked about the incident, Henry denies that he's ever had any kind of personal or professional issues with Tom Hanks. Tom's never given us any reason to think that he would lie about something like that. What would he have to gain? I defeated the Fonz. Hey, so did ABC when they canceled his show. Number 7, Jean-Claude Van Damme. The Belgian actor Jean-Claude Van Damme was just on the verge of coming into his own career as the Muscles from Brussels when he landed a job opposite of Arnold Schwarzenegger in 1987's action flick Predator. Now, this sounded like the perfect casting choice, right? Jean would have worked alongside the likes of Carl Weathers and Jesse Ventura, and while that may have turned out cool, the reality was that John wasn't casted to play a role as one of the Marines at all. Instead, he was casted to play the titular Predator himself. The special effects artists behind the project called the experience with John as a hilarious comedy of errors, in which nobody knew exactly what the other was expecting. Apparently, nobody had informed Jean that the role was basically just a glorified stuntman. They were prepared to direct him to just hop around like a frog, but John was obviously confused and upset with this choice. According to John, he had just gotten off the boat, and he was under the impression that he was going to be showcasing his martial arts skills to the world, but was instead reduced to a massive, slow-moving alien with dreadlocks. To the surprise of absolutely nobody, Van Damme was furious and dispirited about spending this entire movie coked up in a clunky and often ridiculous-looking suit, and was ultimately fired and replaced with Kevin Peter Hall. The idea that he was just on set like, I can barely move in this thing, just brings me so much joy. Number 6, Shia LaBeouf. In 2013, Alec Baldwin was attached to star in a Broadway production of the show Orphans alongside Transformers alumni Shia LaBeouf. Now, from day one of rehearsal, Shia and Baldwin were at each other's throats. Shia's problem was that Alec was not off script. This was something that he considered to be very unprofessional. Shia has since claimed that he was so nervous about the show that he made sure to memorize his lines before he even set foot on the stage. His methods were not reciprocated by Alec, who simply showed up with a coffee in one hand and a script in the other one, planning to rehearse in the moment. Shia was furious and apparently yelled at Alec to learn his lines right now. He was the lead. That's the deal. After a couple of weeks and one particularly rough day where Shia blew up at him in front of a ton of cast and crew, Alec took 5 and had a meeting with the producers. He said that if Shia wasn't let go, that he was gonna quit. Well, producers caved and Shia was let go. In the tabloid, they claimed creative differences, but Shia later shared his side, clearly upset with being dropped as if he meant nothing to the show. Number 5, Dennis Hopper. Dennis Hopper is one of the groundbreaking actors and directors of the 1960s and 70s New Hollywood, now eventually finding his niche in the early 90s, playing villains in films like Speed, Waterworld, and the live-action Mario movie where he plays Bowser. Yes, that exists. No, it's not good. So it came as no surprise when he was casted to play Kristoff, the all-powerful TV producer controlling Truman Burbank's life in the film The Truman Show. The cast was stacked and it included Hollywood heavyweight Jim Carrey as the titular Truman. Anyone with a brain cell would have been excited to be a part of this movie, still considered to be one of Jim's best dramatic performances. However, 2 days into filming his scenes for Kristoff, which were only supposed to take 10 days to film, Hopper was unceremoniously let go from the set. Apparently, Dennis had a contract in place with producer Scott Rudin that he would be fired should his work be unsatisfactory. He must have been pretty bad in the role, as the director Peter career has been described as extremely reluctant to ever remove an actor from a movie. Reports later surfaced that Hopper was basically half asleep while playing the character, and while Kristoff wasn't written to be, a manic madman, he did require just a little bit of effort to be properly portrayed. Ultimately, Ed Harris stepped in to play the role after production had been desperately trying to replace Dennis to avoid having this film be shut down entirely. Thankfully, that never happened, and The Truman Show has gone on to be one of the most depressingly heartfelt films Jim Carrey has ever made. Oh, and Ed actually got nominated for an Oscar, so sorry Dennis, looks like they made a good move. Number 4, Eric Stoltz. Alright, here, let's talk about a little bit of the 1985 comedy sci-fi Back to the Future. I loved this movie growing up. The story followed Marty McFly, a high school student who's accidentally sent back to 1955 in a DeLorean invented by his close friend and scientist Dr. Emmett Brown, played by Christopher Lloyd, and no, we're not going to talk about that friendship even though it's a little strange. And they're forced to get his future parents together before he disappears from existence. Now, whoever pitched this movie must have been lacking some sleep. The film went on to spawn 2 sequels, creating what's considered to be one of the greatest film trilogies of all time, and while Michael J. Fox may have played the iconic Marty McFly, he actually wasn't the first actor to put on that puffy vest. A young man named Eric Stoltz was initially casted to play the role. You may not recognize Eric because his most famous character was drenched in prosthetics and makeup, playing the character of Roy L. Dennis in the film Mask, a man with severe facial and skull deformities. He was nearly halfway through shooting this movie when the news came that he was going to be replaced by Michael J. Fox. Fox was the director Robert Zemeckis' first choice, but he was initially unable to sign on to the project because of his prior commitments to the show Family Ties. Eventually, though, the 2 studios were able to find a way to make it work and allowed him to film both projects. This is why you may notice that a majority of Marty's scenes that take place outside are at night, because it was the only time that he could film for like 60% of this movie. Robert wanted Eric out from the very beginning though, because his portrayal of the character was just too intense, a lot more intense than the writers had in mind, not to mention Eric read the end of the movie as a tragedy instead of a happy ending. Spoiler alert for a movie that's like 40 years old. At the end of the first film, Marty returns to 1985 after successfully getting his parents together, but instead of being poor and depressed, the family is thriving and successful, and somehow Eric took that as Marty being an outsider in a world he didn't know. But just like, look at the truck he has parked in his garage, like nothing tragic about that. His intensity combined with his depressing performance of the finale got him kicked off of the film only minutes after Fox was available. Number 3, Alyssa Milano. Alright, let's talk about the show Charmed, a solid series that was on the air for 10 years. The series followed 3 sisters that discover they're descendants of a line of good female witches and are destined to fight against the forces of evil. Yeah, it was a fun show. However, just because you play sisters on set doesn't mean that you're gonna be close in real life. Rose McGowan and Alyssa Milano had a very public altercation that resulted in a little incident on set being shared with the world. Rose claimed that Alyssa threw a fit in front of the crew, yelling that they didn't pay her enough to do the things she was doing, only she didn't say things she was doing. She said a bad word. She called Alyssa's behavior appalling, claiming that she cried every time the show got renewed for another season because it meant more time on a toxic set. Alyssa never shared her own comments on the situation and was eventually let go from the show, confirming what she was being accused of. Number 2, Thomas Gibson. Thomas made a name for himself starring as one of the leads of the series Criminal Minds. He was on the show for a few years, and in that time he made a few problems for the people unfortunate enough to be staff members of the series. There were a few issues over the years that would have warranted some action, like screaming at producers and writers for not doing a good job, but the incident that got him kicked off the show for good involved a kick. In 2016, Thomas was swiftly fired from the series after an incident with a writer named Virgil Williams. An internal investigation revealed that Thomas kicked Virgil one day during production of an episode that Gibson was directing. Now, as I've said before, that was not the first incident on set that really should have resulted in some kind of punishment. In 2013, he pleaded no contest to no juice related reckless driving after being arrested under a DUI, and 3 years before that, he allegedly shoved an assistant director, Ian Wolfe, during a late night location scene. That led to the studio ordering Gibson to take 8 hours of anger management, which clearly worked out. According to most of the people on set though, Thomas was a wild card. Some days he'd be friendly and accommodating, and the next, nuts. And at number 1, Richard Gere. Richard Gere is one of those actors that doesn't really act. You know, sometimes people just get hired for films because they have a face for it or a style. For Richard Gere, he did not have enough class and moxie to keep a handle on his role in the film The Lords of the Flatbush. Now, he was cast to star alongside Rocky Balboa, Sylvester Stallone, and according to Sly, these two just didn't get along. Their beef was strong and long-lasting throughout production until it finally came to a head when one day Richard was just a little bit too into one scene Sheen and grabbed Sylvester aggressively by his collar. When Sly told him to lay off, he laid in instead. Now, the scene was being filmed on Coney Island, and when the actors took a minute to take a break, they tried to break each other. Sly was eating a hot dog alone in his car. Sounds peaceful, right? Well, then suddenly Richard came in and joined him with half of a chicken dripping in mustard. Despite Sly's warning about the mustard, it dripped all over his pants, and in true Rocky fashion, he elbowed Richard in the face and threw him out of his car. The altercation resulted in Richard being fired from the project. Oh no! We have to decide between Richard Gere and Sylvester Stallone. I wonder how quick that decision was.
Rebel Wilson's book Rebel Rising was released this year and caused quite a stir when it exposed some new information about an already controversial figure. Wilson held absolutely nothing back when she titled a chapter Sacha Baron Cohen and Other A-Holes. The pair worked together on the 2016 film Grimsby, and Wilson claims it was not a fun experience. The actress claims Cohen humiliated her on set and in the film, something Cohen has reportedly denied. Apparently, Wilson had a no nudity clause in her contract, and yet Cohen would ask if she wanted to do it frequently. Upon returning for reshoots, the actress says she felt disrespected while there, so much so that when the movie did come out, she almost did nothing to promote it and has allegedly never even seen it. This isn't the first time a controversy has been attached to Cohen's name. He's actually known for quite a few, but a major one was the incident with the ashes he threw on the red carpet one year. Isaiah Washington had so much Hollywood potential, but then he made some controversial public comments and threw it all away. You probably know Washington from Grey's Anatomy, where he starred as Dr. Preston Burke. Well, that's the show where everything went wrong. According to the book by Lynette Rice, How to Save a Life, the inside story of Grey's Anatomy, a fight between Washington and Patrick Dempsey broke out on set, causing the domino effect that led to Washington's firing. According to interviews in the book, one of the men was late to set one day, so the next day, the other decided to get him back and be late. Tensions got really high, and soon the two men were brawling in studio. Washington allegedly pushed Dempsey up against a wall and began shouting in his face, and that's bad, but it wasn't until Washington used a negative term to describe gay people that the fight stopped. The word was used in context of another actor on the show who was known to be gay. Washington ended up apologizing, but then for some reason used the word again at the Golden Globes. One of his co-stars, Katherine Heigl, spoke about this as her friend was the person being called names. She said, "I'm going to be really honest right now, he needs to just not speak in public." Is she wrong? Every time he opened his mouth at this time, it just got worse. Years later, Washington is still using his voice to advocate for causes he believes in, but every once in a while says something that completely misses the mark. That, or he is bringing up his departure from the show again. Megan Fox and Lindsay Lohan worked together for the iconic early 2000s movie Confessions of a Teenage Drama Queen. Their confessions that came out after the film painted an interesting picture. Apparently, Fox and Lohan did not get along, but Fox attributes that more to their ages than anything else. A few years post-film release, Fox went on record saying that the two women might get along better now that they were older. Lohan has given her reason why she was once angry with Fox during filming. Megan was allowed to get a spray tan, and Lindsay wasn't, and that made her quite jealous. Charlie Sheen, who you may know from 2.5 Men, has a confirmed history of not being nice to his partners. Actress Denise Richards is another example of the man's terrible pattern. The pair worked together on 2.5 Men, fell in love, got married, and started a family. However, things changed in May of 2006. Richards filed a restraining order against Sheen. According to the order, Sheen could only see their family if it was a supervised visit. Otherwise, he had to stay 300 yards away from them at all times. The reason Richards had to get the restraining order in the first place was because Sheen allegedly said some violent things to her and handled her roughly. Similar situations would happen later on in Sheen's career with different women. She would also gain public attention by making odd claims and statements. Eventually, he was let go from the CBS show. Jeanette McCurdy co-starred with Ariana Grande on Nickelodeon's show Sam and Cat based on their characters from other popular Nick shows. Again, these two did not always see eye to eye on set, sometimes not even seeing each other for a week. McCurdy's memoir, I'm Glad My Mom Died, dropped in 2022 and dropped some major info about Ariana along with it. According to the book, as Sam and Cat was in its first bit of filming, Ariana's music career started taking off, leading to Ariana suddenly not being around as much, leaving McCurdy to start picking up the slack. McCurdy's book details how Grande used to regularly miss filming. According to the book, Ariana was missing filming to go sing at award shows, record new songs, and do press for her upcoming album. While in McCurdy's words, she had to angrily hold down the fort. McCurdy does admit that a lot of her ill will towards Ariana was rooted in jealousy. Jealous that Ariana was able to miss so much filming, but McCurdy hadn't had the opportunity to do that when she had asked in the past. McCurdy writes that she had to turn down 2 features she had booked while working on iCarly because the team for the show would not write her out of the episodes so she could film the movies, whereas Grande would sometimes miss a week at a time. Rebecca Ferguson caught the attention of pretty much the entire internet when she shared in an interview that she had once been yelled at by a co-star years ago. Almost immediately after this interview dropped, the entire internet was scouring Ferguson's movie credits trying to figure out who this person was that yelled at the Dune star. It's been a few months since and people have decided that the actor in question is Hugh Grant. Ferguson still has not confirmed exactly who she was talking about, but people are looking at what other Grant co-stars have said about working with him, and it doesn't make him look good. TV host and actor Jon Stewart claims Grant's on-set behavior wasn't the nicest in a 2012 interview, going so far as to say the actor would never be welcomed back on the show he had been working for at the time. He also said Grant was giving everyone grief the whole time and he's a big pain. Hugh Grant has admitted to acting rudely on a set. In an interview with Total Film magazine, Grant shared that while on the set of the movie Dungeons & Dragons: Honor Among Thieves, he lost his temper with a woman in his eyeline. He says that he thought she was someone that should have known where to be on set, but in reality it was the chaperone for the young girl on the movie, meaning that woman was just a nice local woman. He said that the incident was terrible and there was a lot of groveling. We know he yelled at this woman, but we don't know for sure if Grant is the one that yelled at Ferguson, but Grant has admitted himself that Renee Zellweger is one of the few actresses he hasn't fallen out with, so there is that. One of the biggest ongoing Hollywood feuds is between Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and Vin Diesel. Those two absolutely do not get along. It seems they might be doing better now, but there was once a time when the two men were hurling insults at each other and not appearing in any scenes together in movies they co-starred in. It might have something to do with Diesel giving out unwanted acting advice, claiming that he used a tough love approach to get Johnson's performance to the place it needed to be, something Johnson claims he laughed and laughed at. Johnson has shared that him and Diesel have a fundamental difference in philosophies on how they approach movie making and collaborating, and that is what is causing all the trouble. No matter what is causing the long-standing feud, the two men, they're not good friends. Busy Phillips is one of the many actresses to expose co-star James Franco for his rude on-set behavior. The two worked together on the 1999 TV series Freaks and Geeks, and apparently it was awful. Busy claims Franco acted like a bully on set and once shoved her to the ground. Allegedly, while filming a scene where Busy was directed to lightly hit Franco on the chest, Franco, not in character anymore, grabbed Busy, screamed in her face, and then threw her to the ground. Allegedly, he was forced to apologize by the directors and producers. The incident with Phillips isn't the only terrible thing the actor has been accused of. 5 women have come forward accusing him of inappropriate misconduct. Franco is definitely in some hot water. Vanessa Marquez is known for her role in ER, where she starred alongside George Clooney. Vanessa was on the show for only 3 of the 15 seasons, and she claims Clooney had something to do with her being let go from the show and written off. Vanessa would go on to accuse Clooney of having a hand in blacklisting her from not just the show, but Hollywood in general. Vanessa claims that George Clooney and other actors on the show had acted inappropriately towards her on set. Not necessarily saying that Clooney was the one doing it, she just named him and said that she experienced bad behavior every day while working on the show. Vanessa says she complained to someone about the on-set inappropriate actions and claims that that was the reason why she was fired from the show. George Clooney has directly acknowledged these accusations. In 2017, 2017, he said he had nothing to do with Vanessa being blacklisted and that he actually didn't even realize she was. And finally, the award for the most disastrous press tour goes to the Don't Worry Darling press tour. Truly, that tour could not have gone worse. Harry Styles was accused of spitting on his co-star Chris Pine, but even more serious, the lead of the movie, Florence Pugh, allegedly was in a feud with co-star and director of the film, Olivia Wilde. Florence Pugh was noticeably absent during the film's premiere at the Venice Film Festival. She did make a red carpet appearance, noticeably staying away from Olivia Wilde. Florence hasn't explicitly said anything, but her silence at the time was just as loud. Then there's also the matter of Pugh's attitude switch from when the film was first announced versus when it actually came out. Pugh seemed super excited about the project when she first signed on, posting about it online, praising Wilde. However, when it came time to promote the film, she barely said anything. Or if she did say something, she almost always left Olivia Wilde out of it. The few times Pugh had talked about the film, it seemed like she was contradicting something Wilde had said. A big point of conflict came even before filming started, surrounding the casting of Shia LaBeouf. LaBeouf had been accused of bad things by ex-FKA Twigs, and Florence allegedly did not feel comfortable working with him. At first, Olivia said she agreed, and that's why he was fired. However, LaBeouf came forward and pretty much said Olivia was lying, sharing screenshots and a video from Wilde that made it seem like she was actually on his side. Around when these got released, Florence confirmed she would not be promoting the film with Wilde. There was also this rumor floating around for a while that Florence allegedly took on a more directorial role during filming, as Wilde was preoccupied with Harry Styles.